Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're continuing our emotional what-if story. What if Hinata became the light in Sasuke's darkest days? Their unexpected bond changed everything. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss future episodes. If you're enjoying the story, comment below. Sasuke's new path begins. Now sit back, relax, and discover what happens next as Hinata's bond with Sasuke changes his destiny. Let's begin. Part 5. Of course my hair is different. I tied it. There was a certain coldness in her tone he was not accustomed to. The crease that appeared between her eyebrows whenever she was upset was present. Let's take a walk. No, she replied with greater emphasis. Hinata. She stared at him unyieldingly. People might see you walking around with a slut at night and get the wrong impression. What? I'm a slut, aren't I? I recall you stating that quite clearly. He resisted the urge to groan. What had possessed him? Why would his mind even think of Hinata like that? Hinata. It's late. I'm going to bed. Good night, Sasuke. He caught her hand as she was turning around. She tried to pull away. He refused to allow her to. I'm a worthless piece of trash. I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do to correct what I did. Her eyes softened just a tiny bit. But can we please talk? Privately. The struggling ceased. Please. She looked up at him. He could see it in her eyes that she had already conceded. Let me go get dressed. Her cheeks turned crimson. It was as if she was only now noticing her state of dress. She had been too angry to think about it when she had answered the door. He released her hand. She wordlessly went back inside. His eyes trailed after her. He could not resist inspecting the way her shorts hugged her swaying hips, showcased the shape of her alluring behind and emphasized her slim waist. She would never look him in the eye if she discovered the thoughts he was having at that moment. He was not concerned by the effect her body was having over him. It was nothing more than the result of seeing such a well-endowed girl in such skimpy clothing. She returned. Her shorts had been replaced by a pair of her usual calf-length pants. She zipped up her light baggy jacket, covering her exposed midriff and cleavage. Good. His brain no longer had to put up with any distractions, nor did he have to exercise his self-control by forcing his eyes not to wander. They descended the floors of the apartment building. It was dark outside. The mysterious and infinite dark blanket above their heads was sparkling. The street was nearly deserted. Where are we going? She asked, moving away from unwanted listeners. She stopped. I think we're far enough for Kurenai-sensei not to hear us. He was aware of that. He was merely delaying the inevitable. She was watching him expectantly. The orangish glow of the streetlight illuminated her pale skin. Let me have it. Tell me what an asshole I've been. It would probably help if she vented out her disappointment in him. She did not hesitate to let him have it. Do you respect me? Yes, he replied. You're lying. You wouldn't have treated me the way you did if you respected me. Her eyes were pinning him in place. You wouldn't have shouted at me like that if you did. You wouldn't have thrown glass bottles at me and almost injured me. And you wouldn't have insulted me like that. Maintaining eye contact was torture, but he had to face the music. He had to face the consequence of his actions. I was not in the right state of mind. What about afterwards? Were you also not in the right state of mind all this time? Is that why it took you so long to apologize? You taking so long to apologize makes me feel like you don't respect me. The anger that had cooled off in her eyes was building up all over again. I want to be there for you. I care about you, but I also want to be treated right. I hate being treated this way. He had never felt more worthless. He was poison. He ruined all that was good. He destroyed. He was toxic. He wished he could say something. Anything to make things better. But what was there to say? A moment of awkward silence ensued. An awkward silence had not happened between them in a long time. I'm sorry, he told her. I understand what you're going through. But that doesn't give you the excuse to treat me or anyone else like that, Sasuke. I need to feel respected. You shouldn't make me feel as if I'm worthless. Her words penetrated into his heart. He did not know how long they had been standing there in silence. A drunk man stumbled past them. The drunk unloaded a string of slurred curses at an invisible person. I also don't appreciate how you were ignoring me before the incident. I don't like feeling like a burden. He nodded. The anger in her eyes gradually receded. I was worried about you. Her expressive eyes were an open book. A gateway to her inner thoughts and emotions. Her eyes displayed her concern. He felt even guiltier. Have you been sleeping? Have you been eating? What about the nightmares? And those headaches. The compassion in her eyes warmed his insides. He did not deserve her. Her compassion was being wasted on an asshole like him. I'm fine. She searched his face as if to determine if he was lying. Do you drink regularly now? Had she suspected something? Yes. He owed her the truth after what he had done. Her eyes glossed over. Can we go back to how things were before the incident? It gets lonely. He had not intended to say that last part. He blamed the fact that he was finding it less and less necessary to keep his guard up when he was with her. That moment at the Uchiha district had changed things. She smiled. All right. He smirked. The weight on his shoulders lessened. On 2 conditions. His smirk disappeared. Firstly, you have to promise me that you'll make an effort not to hurt me. Guilt slammed into his chest. He was such an asshole. He was filth. Last time you told me that you could not promise me that you would not hurt me in the future and I accepted it. I've realized that it's not good enough. You need to commit. He gulped. Guy's words rang in his mind. Maybe changing the way he felt inside was beyond his power, but maybe he could change the way he treated people. I promise. He could not decipher the emotion in her eyes. What's the second one? She replied without hesitation. Promise me that you'll stop drinking. To stop drinking. Now that was a mammoth task. One he was not sure he could manage. Could he stop? Did he even want to stop? No, he did not want to stop. He did not want to lose such an effective escape. On the other hand, drinking was not good for him. But still, he could only guess why she wanted him to stop drinking. He would not be receiving an elaboration from the looks of it. I promise. Her eyes softened. All right, she replied. She suddenly looked conflicted. Come here. She motioned for him to move closer to her. He humored her. Bring your head closer, she said. Are you going to kiss me, princess? Her eyes went wide. Her cheeks went crimson. No. He smirked. Calm down. I was just asking. He moved his head closer like she had asked. Her scent saturated his senses. She whispered into his ear. His blood became colder than ice water. What really happened during the Uchiha massacre? She pulled away so she could see his face. How do you? Her eyes widened. So it's true. There's more to the story. Who told you? You said something while you were intoxicated. You want to know the truth. I want to know the truth. Her eyes were beaming with determination. You're better off not knowing. The anger that had vanished from her eyes returned ever so slowly. Did I not tell you how much I hate being treated like a child? I'm not treating you like a child. Then why won't you tell me? Is it because you don't trust me? I don't want to see the light in your eyes dimming. Sometimes not knowing was better than knowing. Sometimes believing in a lie was better than knowing the truth. Sasuke, my life has never been a bouquet of roses. I think I can handle the truth. He kept quiet. Sasuke, fine, I'll tell you. It had rained, terribly so. The sky had wept and its reviving tears had fallen upon the land. There was a sense of renewal in the air. A sense of rejuvenation. The air smelled cleaner and the people of Konoha had felt more grateful for the shelter and clothing that they often took for granted in the midst of the downpour. Unfortunately, for him, the rain had not provided him with a sense of renewal and rejuvenation. It had brought him sickness. Well, the rain was not solely to blame for his sickness. He was also to blame. He was the one who had drank to a stupor and ended up outside. He was the one who had been too drunk to go inside once the rain had began pouring. He had woken up wet, with a skull-splitting headache, a congested nose, a sore throat. He also felt unusually fatigued. He had dragged himself back inside and peeled the damp clothing off his body before taking a hot shower. The word horrible did not adequately describe how he felt. The word horrible felt like too tiny a word to describe having a cold and experiencing a hangover simultaneously. He finished showering. It had been a fast one. He was too weak to stand for a long period. He dried himself and collapsed on his futon and drifted off to sleep. He was viciously woken up. What was that awful sound? And why was there so much sunlight? He finally recognized the awful sound as a knock. It was Hinata. He found his way to his feet. His head punished him for standing so abruptly. He felt like his brain was being shaken and his brain was colliding with the walls of his skull. He dragged himself to the front door and opened it. The sunlight that flooded the room made his eyes sore. Sasuke. Hinata scrutinized him. Are you feeling okay? She rested her fingers against his forehead. Your temperature is quite high. How are you feeling? My head. My throat. Yeah, basically. She seemed to understand what he meant. Why was she here again? He recalled her telling him that she would be passing by before going to work the previous morning. He just could not recall the reason. When did you start feeling unwell? When I woke up this morning. He felt so weak. His muscles felt so feeble and pathetic. He had become weaker after the end of the war. It did not bother him because he found no purpose in being strong. But feeling as weak as he was feeling right then rubbed him the wrong way. He held his head. He felt like his head was being split open. Go and lie down. He did not protest. The action of lowering himself down made his head hurt even more. I'll be back soon. Hinata was standing by the bedroom door. He was in too much pain to ask why she would be returning since he was clearly in no condition to be entertaining her. The line between reality and imagination blurred as sleep crept on him. He fell into a restless sleep. The sound of footsteps woke him up. He woke up feeling just as crappy as before. He was dying of thirst too. He did not know how long he had been sleeping, but the grogginess he felt indicated that he had been sleeping for a while. You're finally awake. He sat up. His head punished him for that. You need to eat so that you can take your medication. My medication? I brought you medication. He had never been so glad to hear the word medication. He would embrace anything that would alleviate this sickness. I also had to buy a few ingredients for. You cooked? Yes. How long have I been sleeping? Nearly 2 hours. Shouldn't you be at work? I couldn't just leave you like this. I'm thirsty. She left and came back with a glass of water. His arm trembled as he drank the water. His muscles were terribly weak. He felt even weaker than he did before sleeping. He handed the cup back to her and lied down again. He closed his eyes. He opened his eyes when he sensed her kneeling down next to him. There was a bowl of soup in her hands. He could tell that the soup was delicious, but he did not have an appetite. I'm too tired to eat. You'll feel better once you eat. Later. She looked at him stubbornly. Sasuke. Feed me then. All right. Sit up so I can feed you. She had taken his request seriously. Honestly though, being fed would be helpful. Besides, it was Hinata. He could allow his vulnerability to show. He pulled himself into a sitting position and leaned his back against the wall. She shifted closer to him and sat down cross-legged. She fed him. It was a thick soup with vegetables and pieces of chicken. It was savory. It would probably taste even better if his taste buds had not been dulled by the sickness. He remembered his mother as she fed him. Maybe it was because no one other than his mother had cared for him while he was sick. What would she look like if she had still been alive? Would her flawless skin have a few wrinkles? Would she seem smaller? Since he would no longer be viewing her through the eyes of a child. Why had she been taken away from him so soon? What's wrong? The pain in his heart must have shown on his face. He realized that Hinata had finished feeding him. The bowl of soup was empty. He did not feel like discussing his mother. Not today. I feel horrible. She brushed away some strands of hair that were obscuring his vision before leaving the room. She came back with a concoction in a teacup, a container of pills and a glass of water. It's lemon, ginger, onion and honey. She sat down. He looked at her pensively. She stared back firmly. Don't be a baby. He smirked despite it all. You're such a bully. I'm too sweet to be a bully, she replied with overly innocent smile. Calling yourself sweet is a bit presumptuous, don't you think? He drank the foul-tasting concoction and drank the pills. He lied down again. It's not presumptuous. I'm merely stating a fact. It's akin to a person calling themselves humble. It's presumptuous. And it contradicts the very concept of humility. He felt like giving himself a pat on the back for that point. No, it's different. Being sweet doesn't necessarily mean you're humble. So by calling myself sweet I'm not contradicting my own sweetness. Okay, she had won this one. He closed his eyes. It did not take long for him to drift off to sleep. Hinata was no longer next to him when he woke up. The grogginess he was feeling told him that he had been sleeping for a long time. The horrible headache he had been tormenting him had nearly completely quieted down. Sitting was no longer as uncomfortable as it had been before. The medicine Hinata had given him had been effective. He got up from the futon. The usual wave of dizziness that assaulted him whenever he stood up after having lied down for a long time hit him. He was parched. He also needed to blow his nose. He blew his nose in the bathroom before going to the kitchen. He paused when he entered the kitchen. He looked around. The kitchen was spotless. It had probably not been this clean since he had moved into the cottage. He opened the tap and drew a cup of water. He had forgotten that the taps could sparkle so brightly. Even the windows had been cleaned. He peeked inside the fridge. The fridge had also been cleaned. Not only had it been cleaned, it was full of food, fruits, vegetables and many other food items. There was more meat in the freezer. He usually did not stock so much food because he barely ate. I did a little bit of shopping while you were sleeping, Hinata said from behind him. Why did you buy so much food? It's not that much food. It's the quantity that you would usually find in a normal person's home. He raised an eyebrow. You need to start eating properly, Sasuke. Starving yourself isn't healthy, she said. And I'm going to monitor you to make sure you're eating well. He sighed. I'll pay you back for the food. I found some liquor. His blood froze. There had been 2 bottles of liquor in one of the cupboards. He had been discovered. She now knew that he had not stopped drinking. I poured it down the drain. What's the use of keeping it if you don't drink anymore, right? He secretly mourned that wasted liquor. She watched him like a hawk. She was waiting to see how he would react. She had no proof that he had not stopped drinking. His reaction would inform her whether or not he had quit. How cunning of her. Yeah, there's no purpose. I'm keeping something that no longer serves any purpose. Quote. He had avoided that trap, masterfully judging from her reaction. He felt guilty for deceiving her. How are you feeling? Like a newborn baby. Every single day that he spent with Hinata demonstrated to him that life was easier when you did not go through it alone. Just months, he had isolated himself from everyone, thinking that being alone would make him feel better. No, being alone had made him lonely. He had been so foolish. Why are you staring at me? She asked. You're the one who's staring at me. Only because you stared first, she replied childishly. He smirked. Isn't it obvious? I'm staring at you because I can't get my eyes off you. I'm attracted to you. Shock made her already large eyes become even large. Yes, I'm attracted to you. Sexually, emotionally and definitely intellectually. He approached her like a predator. She was as frozen as prey that had been cornered. When I see you, I see 4 children, a daughter with eyes like her mother's, and 3 boys that will carry on the legacy of the Uchiha clan. Boys that are not tainted like their father. He had rendered her speechless. It was time to strike the final nail in the coffin. Think we can get married by the end of the month? She must have noticed the look in his eyes. Sasuke, she whined, don't do that. Don't play with me like that. She hit him on the chest. Her cheeks were bright red. He had never seen her so annoyed before. Ouch, you're assaulting your patient. Yes, jerks deserve to assaulted. Be careful not to permanently incapacitate me. I need to be able-bodied to get you pregnant. Hinata gasped. The process requires a bit of physicality from my end, doesn't it? Unless you don't mind. Stop, she looked like a tomato. To say he was amused would be an understatement. I'm going to tell my father about what you said to me. He played along, as if she actually had a relationship with her father. Sometimes it was easier to pretend. There's no need to involve him into this. He'll murder me. Please don't let me lose my life to your overly sophisticated and uptight father's well-moisturized hands. She was more than amused by the manner in which he had described her father. They continued going back and forth, arguing about everything and nothing at the same time. They were in their own cozy little bubble. The tragedy and sadness in their lives failed to penetrate that bubble. An invisible choir was singing. It was singing a song of death. A somber drumbeat accompanied the song of death. The sound of the pelting march of young men taking their last steps to war was loud. It was the marching of young men that would sink into an unknown abyss as the spark of life faded from their terrified eyes. The room was a river of ice. Icy cold and capable of drowning them. Even his bones felt the chill of the room. Outside, the sun was retreating to wherever it went at night. He regretted telling her. Her eyes were painful to watch. They were the eyes of a person that had been crushed by what they had discovered. They were like the eyes of a son who had just heard about his mother's death. They were like the eyes of a devoted husband who had come home early unannounced to find his wife and content in the arms of another man. He had told her the truth. Just as it was. What words could possibly soften such brutality? He stretched out his arm across the kitchen table. She grabbed onto his hand as though he was a lifeline. She clutched her chest with her other hand and started wheezing. She was hyperventilating. Hinata, breathe. She continued hyperventilating. Breathe. Her grip tightened on his hand. How had it come to this? They had been so happy yesterday. Maybe they would not be here if she had not passed by to check on his recovery after her shift. Maybe she would not be so pale if she had not convinced him to tell her the truth about the massacre in the process. Let go. All back. She released his hand. He retrieved a brown paper bag that he had received when he had purchased painkillers some time ago. He gave it to her. There was no need for an explanation. Hinata was medically trained. She covered her mouth with the paper bag, bundled it up so that no air would escape and slowly started exhaling and then inhaling the air she had exhaled. The carbon dioxide would help. Her breathing gradually calmed down. Her hands were still trembling. Itachi didn't murder our clan because he wanted to test his strength. He murdered our clan on Danzo Shimura's order with the consent of the Hokage's council. The third Hokage was aware of Danzo's plan. He rejected it, but Danzo still went behind his back and convinced Itachi to do it. Why? What could possibly lead to such a heartless decision? Hinata had asked with tears in her eyes. A coup. My clan was planning to rebel and assume control of Konoha, he had told her. He sat down and observed her. They had been regarded with extreme suspicion and distrust in the aftermath of the Nine-Tails' attack. They had been marginalized. They had even been forced to live together in a single district as if to make it easier to keep an eye on them. The Uchiha no longer had the power they had held as one of the two most powerful clans in Konoha. So they became disgruntled, Hinata had figured out. He had nodded. That disgruntlement turned into a deep resentment for the administration. And that resentment planted seeds of rebelliousness. It eventually led them to planning to overthrow the administration. But how would that work? Did they expect that the rest of the clans to support them? She had asked after a tense moment of silence. They were planning of overpowering them. The strong would rule over the weak. The Uchiha were prepared to spill blood if that was needed. But how did they find out about the coup? Itachi. Above all, Itachi was loyal to Konoha. He revealed our clan's plans to the Hokage, he had said to her. Itachi revealed it to the Hokage with the hope that the old man would find a way to resolve things peacefully. It did not help. He revealed his true feelings about the coup to our clan. He tried everything to dissuade them. He failed. The sun had fully set by now. Hinata was still sitting there as still as a rock and twice as silent. The truth was not easy to stomach. And so Danzo explained the two possible outcomes to him. The Uchiha could be allowed to attempt their coup, an act which would lead to the entire clan's extermination, including Itachi and I, or he could exterminate all the Uchiha before the coup took place, and in exchange my life would be spared. She had slowly shaken her head in disbelief. Her eyes had begged him. They had begged him to say he was lying. Itachi did the unthinkable. He agreed. His eyes had become wet at that precise moment. Itachi encountered Obito, who was masquerading as Madara. Itachi enlisted his help since he knew that Madara despised the Uchiha. Obito murdered the shinobi while Itachi murdered the civilians. They slaughtered every man, woman and child except me. He had went on to tell her about the aftermath of the massacre. About how he had come home to dead bodies, about the slap on wrist Danzo had received for his insubordination, and how Itachi had joined Akatsuki in order to act as Konoha's spy. She broke free from her trance. Her eyes focused on him. He decided to conclude the account. Itachi never forgave himself for what he did. He believed that he needed to be punished. So he set me on the path of vengeance, hoping that I would one day grow powerful enough to kill him and avenge our clan. She rose from her chair. Her arms were around his neck in the next instant. Her weight was pressing down on his lap. I'm sorry, she choked out. Emotions rippled through his stomach. Teardrops landed on his shoulder. The floodgates opened. Her tears flowed freely. I'm sorry, she whispered between sobs. He held her tighter. The sweet smell of her hair eased the storm in his heart. Her warmth made the room feel just a bit warmer. It became easier to breathe. Some of the tension in his shoulders seeped out. A smile from her, her soft laughter, her presence alone was often capable of alleviating the tension in his shoulders. She was like a flame and he a foolish moth that could not help itself. It was worrying. He hated seeing her so down. She was his little light. She kept him from completely being shrouded in darkness. How could they be so evil? Quote, to murder even the children because the parents were rebellious. To use the heir of the clan to do such a horrifying thing. Aren't you tired of me? He asked. No, really, putting up with all this isn't tiring. I need to do it. For both of us. For both of us. Don't worry about it. Sometimes when I look into your eyes I feel like you're guarded. You have complete access to me but I don't have complete access to you. He felt her tensing. Bullseye. I want to have access to all of you. She laughed. It was a tiny, bitter and mirthless laugh. You want me to unclothe myself. So you can see me in all my nakedness. So you can see every single blemish, scar and imperfection. So you can see how ugly I am. Her tears landed on his shirt. You wouldn't like seeing me unclothed, Sasuke. I know most of you. What difference would it make? The parts one haven't shown you are uglier than the ones you've seen. You would be disgusted. You think I'm afraid of a few blemishes? You're saying that because you haven't seen all of me. She was like a flame and he a foolish moth that could not resist. It was worrying. It made him uneasy, almost as uneasy as the hope she had planted in him. Try me, she sighed. I would still think you're beautiful. She was still not herself even 5 days after he had told her the truth. She was much more withdrawn. She would also become distracted while they were talking. She was still shaken. He had fully recovered by now. He felt strong. He was also eating more. Hinata was forcing him to eat more. He wanted to cheer her up. He could not allow himself to just watch as her light dimmed right before his eyes. He had to try to at least make her eyes sparkle. He had sent out a summon to deliver a message to her a while ago. There was a faint tapping on his bedroom window. His summon was tapping its beak against the window. He opened the window and allowed the bird inside. He removed the tiny rolled piece of paper that was inside a cylindrical holster that was tied around its leg. He unrolled the note. His handwriting stood there in bold ink. Look pretty. We're going out. Pick you up at 6, Sasuke. Underneath his message was a response, the word okay and a smiley face drawn next to it. He nodded to the hawk. It disappeared with a tiny poof of smoke. She tied up her hair in a loose bun. She did not know why, but she had a feeling he liked seeing her hair like that. She applied some dark mascara and a lipstick to brighten her smile. She was not one for loud makeup. To say the message she had received from him was a shock would be an understatement. She removed her robe and put on her outfit. It consisted of a gray flannel skirt and a cream high-neck fitted top with short sleeves. She also wore gold sandals of a premium quality. She only wore these shoes on special occasions. She hung a silver heart-shaped locket around her neck. It looked amazing combined with the high neck of her fitted top. Kurenai had bought the locket for her. She observed herself in the mirror. She looked pretty. Her outfit was casual but also had a touch of class. Ino would be proud. You look gorgeous, Kurenai said to her when she entered the kitchen. Thank you. Are you going on a date with Sasuke? Kurenai teased. It's not a date. Kurenai's eyebrows rose. Wait, you're really going out with him? Yes, but it's not a date. Kurenai gave her a sly smile. Whatever you say, sweetie. Her mother figure winked at her. There was a knock on the door. Bye, enjoy your date, said Kurenai. And remember to play hard to get. Trust me, it drives them crazy. She came face to face with the last Uchiha. He was dressed in sleek black pants and a white shirt. The texture of the shirt told her that it was quite an expensive shirt. The sleeves were rolled and the top 3 buttons had been left unbuttoned. The execution of the outfit was flawless. It touched her heart how his eyes brightened when he saw her. It was a subtle shift, but she had seen it. He was wearing a subtle cologne. An expensive one. His scent wrapped its arms around her tenderly. Sure, there were bags beneath his eyes and he was not exactly a prime example of vitality. He was more washed out and jaded than his younger self. But he looked handsome, nonetheless. He was attractive in a rugged, unpolished way. He looked at her with that unaffected, nearly lazy, gaze of his. She remembered how she used to find it strange that girls would swoon just because of that look. There was a quiet intelligence in his dark eyes. An intelligence that made him witty. She enjoyed his wittiness. He smirked and she felt the urge to look away. That smirk of his was so infuriating at times. She often wished she could wipe it off his face whenever he would get under her skin. Evidently, you take the expression dressed to kill very seriously, princess. Her cheeks became warm. Thank you. You also look nice. I don't associate myself with mediocrity. She rolled her eyes. Sasuke, Kurenai called out from behind her. You better be on your best behavior. I'll make no mistake. Kurenai smiled. The smile was so sweet that she was sure it would give her a toothache. It did not match the warning in her red eyes. Let's go. It had just gotten dark. The streets were bustling with activity. It was a busy night. They ventured into the finer parts of the village. This was the territory of the wealthy. She recalled her days at the Hyuga residence. Where do you want to eat? He said to her. I would prefer it if you decided, she responded. Is it really that difficult? She did not want to voice that fact that she was afraid of straining his budget. She wanted him to pick somewhere he would be comfortable with. There were very few affordable restaurants in these parts. Sasuke, a single dinner won't make me broke. He had read her mind. But Sasuke, Hinata. She ended up choosing the restaurant at the end of the street. The tiles were made of fine marble. Everything was in pristine condition. The decor was sparse but of good taste. 3/4 of the tables were occupied. Beautiful chandeliers were hanging from the ceiling and illuminating the restaurant in sensual orange-yellow hues. The ceiling was made of glass ceiling that was painted with geometric patterns. A waiter escorted them to a table for two. The table was made of a rich dark wood that gave off a subtle shine. The decor was minimalistic. There were 2 square white plates on either side of the table with black serviettes that had been folded into an impressive upright structure on top of them. There was a slim vase with a nosegay of 4 different flowers in the center. They sat down. Even the cushions of the chairs felt luxurious. There was an atmosphere of poise in the restaurant. Their fresh-faced waiter handed them 2 menus before leaving. The menus were pleasant to the touch. She opened the menu. The prices made her gulp. She looked at Sasuke. He was nonchalantly flipping through the pages. Hinata, I am the sole beneficiary of all the Uchiha clan's wealth. Relax. I think I can afford a couple of expensive meals. That thought had not crossed her mind. The Uchiha clan had been a well-off clan. It had been the wealthiest clan in Konoha next to the Hyuga clan. In that case, if he was the sole beneficiary of the clan's wealth then, he was probably one of the wealthiest individuals in Konoha. Despite his frugal appearance and lifestyle, he could probably afford to live a lavish lifestyle without having to work for a single day for the rest of his life. She felt stupid for not having realized that sooner. He closed his menu. Choose for me. I'm too indecisive. I thought things were going well between us. I was happy. So happy. I actually forgot about Neji for a moment. She did not recall how the conversation had reached this point. How had it become about their experiences with romance? They were waiting for their dessert. And then he told me that he could not see me anymore because he could not force himself to pretend anymore. He told me he could not force himself to feel something for me. The quiet murmurs of the other diners bounced in the air. Clinking cutlery and crockery and soft laughter accompanied the murmurs. It left me broken. Not only did it break my heart but it also made me insecure. Was I so undesirable that I could not get him to like me? Was I that unappealing? Sasuke watched her with his usual, deceitfully unaffected neutral expression. She was probably ruining the evening by discussing her failed relationship with Naruto. Everything had been going so well. She had been enjoying herself until she had somehow found herself talking about Naruto. He's an idiot, said Sasuke. I've always known he's a bit slow but I'm shocked to be honest. The Uchiha shook his head in disappointment. Poor bastard must not have received the memo. You just don't break up with girls like you. You thank whatever divine force or being you believe in for allowing you have a chance to build something with them and then you hold on to them and never let go. Her eyes became wet. She was touched by his attempt at cheering her up. She was grateful, but he did not truly mean that, did he? She did not fall into that category of women. Failures did not belong in that category. The poor bastard must have been too blind to realize how special you are. Everything went silent. The clinking of the cutlery and crockery ceased. The talking stopped. The laughter stopped, and the movement of the waiters paused. The only thing that was audible was the loudness of Sasuke's dark gaze and the thumping of her heart. Her, special. She had lost the position of heiress to her younger sister. She was not half as talented as Sakura or half as confident as Ino. She was painfully aware of that. What great accomplishment could she be credited with? What could possibly make her special? The idea almost seemed preposterous and yet, his eyes agreed with the idea wholeheartedly. She could tell that he had not said it just to humor her. Her, special. Here's your dessert. The waiter's announcement freed her from her trance. A plate of mochi ice cream was placed before her. The colorful dessert was mouthwatering. Thank you, she told the waiter. She picked one of the colorful balls and took a bite. Rich, sweet creamy flavors exploded in her mouth. The sensation was beautiful. Sasuke, you need to try this. Sasuke looked at her blankly. He had refused to order any dessert because he hated sweet things. No, just a bite. No, one bite. No. Please. He shook his head and sighed. Fine, I'm only doing this to make you to shut up. She smiled. Well, quote, well what, you think I'm going to waste my energy by moving my hand all the way to your plate? For dessert? How else are you going to taste it? Feed me. Just because I fed you while you were sick does not mean I'm obligated to do so. But she did it anyway. She picked up a piece and leaned towards him. Say ah. This was exactly how she often fed Mirai. Ah. She giggled. She had not expected him to play along. He took a bite and chewed slowly. It's amazing, right? He swallowed. Disgusting. She rolled her eyes. You're just saying that because you're too proud to admit it's delicious. How you can stand that? She resumed eating. Don't be so sour, Sasuke. A little bit of sweetness would be good for you. Good evening. A balding middle-aged man was standing next to them. He was plump man with a tan complexion and kind eyes. I'm honored to host the last Uchiha in my restaurant. The man was dressed in fine clothing that matched the caliber of his restaurant. I'm Taki Hizen, he said with a small bow. May I ask your name, he said to her. Hinata Hyuga. The man flashed a smile. Ah, it's a pleasure to meet you, Hyuga-san. She's quite a beautiful lady, the restaurant owner told Sasuke. Heat rushed to her cheeks. Go tell that to a blind man. Anyone with a half-decent vision can see that she's beautiful. Her insides nodded. The restaurant owner laughed heartily. Well said, Uchiha-san, well said. He smiled at her. It's always wonderful to witness young love. It often makes me reminisce about my youth. The man laughed. His entire chest moved when he laughed. What? No, he was mistaken. Sasuke and her were not. Even from a distance, I couldn't help but notice the chemistry between the two of you. I just love it. She wished she could erase what the man had said. She dreaded the awkwardness that would follow after he left. He engaged Sasuke in conversation. Sasuke replied with short but surprisingly polite responses. She kept thinking about what the man had said. What was it that gave off the impression that they were romantically involved? I must say again, it's a pleasure to meet you, Uchiha-san. I'll personally be of assistance if there's anything you need. The jolly plump man turned to her. Enjoy the rest of your evening, Hyuga-san. Thank you. It was nice meeting you, Hizen-san. This is one exquisite restaurant that you have here. The setup is just outstanding. This mochi ice cream is probably the best I've ever had. The middle-aged man beamed. Is that so? I'm very happy to hear that. He turned back to Sasuke. Not to be intrusive, but I advise you to hold on to her by all means. The man left. See, even he thinks we should get married and have a bunch of babies, Sasuke pointed out. Like I said the other day, a daughter and 3 sons. Just think about it. He winked at her. She glared at him. I thought I had shut down that train of thought. The awkwardness she had expected was absent. Don't look at me. I'm not the one who brought up the discussion. She recalled when he had opened up about being afraid of being a father. He was afraid he would somehow taint his children and that they would end up just like him. So it's settled then. You'll be Hinata Uchiha soon. No, why not? Firstly, I prefer being Hinata Hyuga. I happen to like the alliteration. He raised an eyebrow. Secondly, and more importantly, you're not my type. A sound exploded in his chest. She realized he was laughing. She was mesmerized by the way his eyes squinted and twinkled and the way his laughter brightened space around them. She had never seen him laugh. Never. It warmed her chest. What's your type then? Someone who doesn't drink coffee without sugar or milk. Someone who doesn't think everything with a particle of sugar is disgusting. Damn, I could never be that person. I guess we cannot be together. We have irreconcilable differences, I guess, she told him. He smirked. She could immediately tell he was up to no good. Where's my farewell kiss? She almost did not believe her ears. You're what? You broke up with me. So you have to kiss me one last time before we part. She shook her head and laughed. But we never kissed in the first place. We were never in a relationship. Oh, you're one of them, huh? One of who? He smirked. The denialists. The type that breaks up with someone and pretends that nothing ever happened between them. What? That's ridiculous. And yet here you are, denying our involvement. She wanted to wipe off that infuriating smirk of his. That smirk of his was never absent when he started playing these mind games. Mind games she enjoyed playing with him more than she would like to admit. Fine, fine, we were involved. We kissed and everything. The infuriating smirk grew. It's unfortunate how bad of a kisser you are. I found myself being underwhelmed every single time. What would your old fan club think if they were to discover how underwhelming you are? The smirk disappeared. She mentally gave herself a pat on the back. He looked ready to protest. He's your farewell kiss. She blew him a kiss. He caught the imaginary kiss and slipped it into his pocket. I'll hold on to it when I lay awake, cold, at night thinking about you. She failed to hold her laughter. He performed the necessary seals. It was more difficult performing them one-handed. He was a novice in one-handed seals. There was a poof of white smoke. A hoarse screech pierced the air. The mighty sound of flapping of wings followed. The smoke was blown away. A gigantic hawk with a brown coat was revealed. It was his faithful summon, Garuda. Climb on. They were on the Hokage monument. They had left the restaurant about an hour ago. They had spent the past hour walking around aimlessly since neither of them had felt like calling it a night yet. I didn't think this through. Don't tell me you're afraid of flying. Hinata shot him a look of annoyance. I'm not. He leapt onto the hawk's back in a display of raw physical effort. He looked down at her expectantly. Okay, I'm a bit scared, she admitted. Which is foolish since I've done much more dangerous things before. He stretched out his arm. I won't let anything happen to you. Trust me. She did not react. Hinata. She crouched before launching herself off the ground. He grabbed her forearm just as she grabbed his and propelled her upwards. She maneuvered in the air and landed gracefully behind him. She scooted closer to him. Why did I agree to this? It'll be fun, he said. Hold on. She wrapped her arms around his torso. Never talk to me again if I fall off. What? Quote, you heard me. Don't be a crybaby. Excuse me. Garuda launched off the ground in a display of explosive power. Hinata held on to him tighter. The hawk steadily gained altitude. He could feel the tension in Hinata's body. They eventually stopped soaring upwards and levitated in the air. They rocked up and down as Garuda hovered in the air. His wings were flapping gently. Still in one piece. Yes. Look down. Her weight shifted as she cautiously looked down. The only sound present was the powerful flapping of wings. Wow. She was mesmerized. He felt satisfied with himself. It's really beautiful from up here. She looked down the other side. The view is spectacular. All of the lights are just breathtaking. She sounded like a child in a candy store. He could almost feel the excitement inside her. There was a calm breeze. Garuda started flying around in circles. The monotonous flapping of his wings was therapeutic. Garuda flew around the village at a leisurely pace, first heading east and then west and finally heading south. Look at the academy. Is that the hospital? It looks so tiny. They had been in the sky for over 20 minutes. Are you ready for the fun part? I thought this was the fun part. Hold on. Wait, Sasuke. Wah. He struck his legs against Garuda in 3 quick successions. The hawk stretched out its wings. It zoomed up in a burst of impressive speed. Hinata screamed. The mighty wind was blasting his hair backwards. Hinata was glued to him. Garuda stopped flapping his wings. They started falling. Sasuke. Quote. The hawk's wings opened. They were soaring up again within seconds. Garuda suddenly changed course. He was now flying to the east. He changed course again, and again, and again, and again. Garuda twisted. He turned. He flipped. He zoomed downwards. He soared upwards. He was relentless. Hinata relaxed. The screaming ceased. His heart threatened to burst out of his chest. He had goosebumps. Adrenaline was running through his veins. It felt incredible. Hinata must have felt it too. She started screaming again, but this time she was screaming in euphoria. At that moment, nothing else mattered. The voices in his head did not matter, nor the emptiness he suffered from, nor the grief, nor the guilt. The pressure of having to revive his clan was irrelevant, and so were the nightmares he faced at night. He was happy. Only the exhilarating feeling of flying, the wind, the adrenaline flooding his veins, and the screaming girl holding onto him mattered. When had he last felt this way? He found desperately wishing that Guy's words were true. He found himself longing to be the master of his fate. If he could be the master of his fate, he would make this happiness last forever. Why didn't you tell me? It's so incredible. We should have done it sooner. They were back on the Hokage monument. Adrenaline was still running in her veins. She latched onto his arm. Sasuke, I want to do it again. When can we do it again? Why are you just looking at me, Sasuke? When can we do it again? I told you you'd like it, he said calmly. His calmness sobered her. She released his arm. He looked up at the stars. She followed suit. The stars were extra bright today. Or maybe she was just happier. The stars were always there, always shining. No matter the season, they never stopped shining. She wished she could be like the stars. Are you feeling better now? Better in what way? He turned to her. He searched for something in her eyes. The massacre. The whole purpose of him doing all of this was now clear. He was merely trying to cheer her up. He had noticed how much of a toll the truth about his clan's massacre had put on her. There was a tingling sensation in her chest. Somewhere close to her heart. Thank you for tonight. She cleared her throat. She was getting emotional. I feel much better now. Good. I'm to blame for your sadness. I'm the one who wanted to know, she countered. Still, I can't have you waking around feeling sad because of me. Don't worry, there are things that make me sad that have nothing to do with you. He raised an eyebrow, such as, she kept quiet, she had slipped, just like that day. Hinata, it's nothing. Frustration appeared in his eyes. Tell me. She remained silent. I don't understand why you have to hide such things from me. It's difficult, she told him. It's difficult to trust me. I didn't say that. He was silent for a lengthy moment. He placed his palm on her cheek. His hand was smooth, too smooth for a shinobi. It was an indication of how he had not trained for a very long time. His hand was so warm and so. For some reason, the action reminded of her mother. It reminded her of when she would sing a lullaby to lull her to sleep. Her hand settled on top of his. Her eyes closed on their own. Can I have access to all of you? She ignored him and focused on fuzzy memories of her mother singing her lullabies. You want to help me fight my demons, but you won't even let me know yours. She removed his hand from her cheek and opened her eyes. What if you are disgusted by what you find? What if you use what you find to hurt me again? I told you about Neji and you used it to hurt me, didn't you? She regretted saying that last part. He lowered his eyes. And still, the stars would not stop shining. They were unhindered by the conversation that was taking place. They shined regardless of the season. They shined in happy times and in sad times, in peace and in conflict. They shined when the coldness of death was in the air and when the air was warm with the celebration of a new life. She wished she was a star. I'll still be there for you. As unreliable as I might be, as worthless and pathetic as I might be, as depressed as I might feel at times, I'll still be there for you. His eyes gave her goosebumps. The conviction in his eyes gave her goosebumps. I'm certain that if I hadn't come across you that day, under the Yoshino tree, I would have taken my own life by now. She forced herself not to think about him taking his own life. She was not strong enough to allow herself to think about it. I met you and things changed. Her heart was hammering in her chest. I still haven't overcome the darkness within me. I'm too afraid to give in to the hope that I can overcome my darkness. I'm too scared to fight. He moved closer and tipped up her chin with his index finger. His scent embraced her like how a mother would embrace her child. I'm too stubborn to fight, but still. The world seems more colorful because of you. Food just tastes a little bit tasteless. The sun feels just a bit warmer and the days are more distinguishable than before. Her eyes grew wet. How could they possibly stay dry in such a moment? How could she possibly not feel shivers in such a moment? How could her heart possibly remain unaffected? I'm a lost cause. And yet every day you try to take me by the hand and lead me out of the darkness. He traced her jawline with his index finger. That is why I have to do everything I can to protect you. That is why I want you to lean on me when you're weak. And not withhold anything or suffer in silence because I'm here. He tenderly held the back of her neck and pulled her head forward. Her forehead touched his. She closed her eyes as they leaned their foreheads against one another. As unhappy as this piece of shit standing in front of you may be, he's here for you and he's not going anywhere. His breath tickled her lips as he spoke. Don't let the darkness consume you, Hinata. You deserve better. She opened her eyes. His eyes were closed. His jaw was tightly clenched. There was a crease between. He looked pained. She placed her hand on his cheek. He relaxed. He opened his eyes and looked down at her. His dark eyes had never felt more penetrating. She smiled. An all too familiar liquid leaked from her eyes. Don't cry. You'll ruin your mascara. You know that it's called mascara. She whispered. He smirked. I know a thing or two about things you wouldn't think I know about. She smiled widely. His reply had not even been that humorous. You still haven't promised me. His breath tickled her lips. Promised you what? That you'll never be like me. He suddenly looked very old. He looked like a weary soldier who had spent life fighting nightmares. I promise. I'll hold you to it. He pressed his lips against her forehead. She was convinced that his lips belonged there. He withdrew his lips and pulled her into an embrace. His chin rested on top of her head. She latched onto him. She held onto him as if he would disappear. He did the same. They held onto each other as if they both feared that the other would disappear, as if they would suddenly wake up and realize that all these months had been nothing but a dream and that they had never come across one another under that Yoshino tree. She felt safe in his arms. She felt protected. She felt needed. She strangely even felt special. It was more than their limbs that were intertwined. Their hearts and minds felt intertwined. It made no logical sense, but that was how she felt. She felt like they were connected. All of these sensations that she did not know what to do with were too much for her. She cried. She found it difficult to care about her mascara. This connection between them was more than just a connection that had been built from having similar backgrounds of childhood suffering. No, it went beyond that. Did he feel it too? Did he feel this tremendous force that was pulling their souls together? This moment made her not regret getting involved with him. It made her not regret trying to save him. She sometimes felt like he was tainting her, as though the darkness inside him was dimming the light inside her. Being a part of his life was a weight that was heavy to shoulder at times. Yet, she regretted nothing. Their relationship was rocky at times. It had become toxic in some moments. But despite that, it was also beautiful. How had a bond that had been the result of the darkness in their lives turned out to be so beautiful? He tightened his hold on her waist. Something whirled in her stomach. She wanted to run away from him. She wanted him to never let go of her. She wanted to push him away. She wanted to scream. She wanted to laugh. She wanted to cry. She wanted him to let go. She wanted him to hold her forever. She felt like everything would be all right. She felt like he would overcome his depression and that she would start feeling as if her existence was not worthless. You give me hope. She pulled back so that she could see his face. Her hands rested on his chest. You give me hope. You give me the hope that you'll rise about your past, she told him. His facial expression instantly changed. She was familiar with the expression on his face. It was the one that always precluded an argument. Just look at yourself. He was no longer the Sasuke she had met under the Yoshino tree at the beginning of summer. That one had been a dead man walking. Let's not argue about this. Not tonight, Sasuke. They were standing in front of her apartment building. It was late into the night. It was probably almost midnight. It did not feel like they had been out for at least 5 hours. They had been standing there for almost 10 minutes arguing about nothing again. He poked her forehead with his index and middle fingers. She was puzzled by the action. Something told her there was special significance behind the action, but she did not ask him about it. She wanted to say something. Anything, but she had no words to describe what was in her heart. She moved closer to him and stood on her tiptoes. Her lips made contact with his cheek. They lingered there for a moment. Was that my farewell kiss? Her cheeks felt warm. Are you happy now? No. Too bad. That's all you're going to get from me. There was an unusual level of liberty that she had when she was with him. One that made her do and say things that she would never say or do to anyone else. He looked unimpressed. It wasn't even on the lips. She shrugged. He smirked. Ever so spiteful, I see. No wonder I broke up with you. I thought I broke up with you. That's why you were demanding a farewell kiss. He turned around. Get some sleep. He left before she could think of a clever comeback. She watched him until he was swallowed by the darkness of the night. The chilly autumn breeze released a sigh. Golden leaves lazily drifted in the air. The nights were noticeably longer. Winter was waiting patiently for them on the other side with open arms. Autumn was her favorite season. The fact that the weather was somewhere in between that of winter and summer was probably what she loved most about the season. The season had a pleasant equilibrium. Autumn was also Kiba's favorite season. Kiba, she was still reeling from yesterday's events. Their relationship was treading on extremely thin ice at this point. It had been shaky even before yesterday. Yesterday had just drastically worsened things. It saddened her to think that their relationship was deteriorating so quickly. Shino had told her not worry too much. He believed that Kiba would eventually come to terms with her relationship with Sasuke. She could not help but worry. How plausible was Kiba's acceptance of Sasuke considering what had taken place? Her mind recalled what had transpired when she and Sasuke had encountered a certain sharp-tongued Hyuga last week. She was certain that she had been the talk of the Hyuga compound for the entire week. It was already the second week of autumn. 5 weeks had passed since she had went out with Sasuke. Time seemed to be rushing somewhere. She had no idea where it was rushing to. Despite the movement of time, she struggled to see any real change within Sasuke. Guilt had built a dwelling place in her heart and settled down there. The closer she became to Sasuke, the guiltier she felt for using him to validate her existence. Sometimes, it made her feel as if what they had was based on a lie. She sometimes felt like she was deceiving him. She was not going to work that day. She had an off day. It was still early. The sun had risen about 2 hours ago. She did not care how early it was. She needed to see if he was doing all right. His eyes had terrified her. She had been restless all night. She sighed. She cared too much about him. Caring so much had never been part of the plan. It was frightening to grow so attached to him. She had grown so attached to him that she sometimes even struggled to comprehend how she had spent so many years without him being a part of her life. In retrospect, she probably should have maintained stronger boundaries between them so that they would not have gotten so close. Would that have made a difference? Only whoever or whatever resided beyond the stars knew the answer to that question. She would pay for her recklessness. She was having premonitions about their relationship. She just had a feeling that growing so attached to him would bring her suffering. The clearing grew visible. Sasuke's home stood on the clearing. She had not really realized how they barely met up at the Yoshino tree lately. They now met up here most of the time. Her feet landed on his doorstep. She knocked on the ajar door. There was no response. She knew he was inside. She could feel his chakra signature. She ventured inside. Sasuke. She peeked into the lounge. Her knees went cold when she saw him. There were pieces of a broken liquor bottle and a pool of blood next to him. The previous day, they all paused. He felt the urge to smirk. They were shocked about his presence just as much as he was. His eyes swept the area. Most of his former classmates were present. Choji, the food enthusiast, was behind the grill with a pair of tongs in hand. There was a dark-skinned kunoichi with reddish hair next to him. The insignia of Kumogakure was on her hitayate. She eyed him warily. Shikamaru was standing a short distance away. He was carrying a bag of ice. The genius observed him with his typical lazy gaze. It was difficult to figure out what was on his mind. Gaara's blonde-haired sister was next to him. He did not recall her name. His eyes went past Shikamaru and Gaara's sister to the table behind them. Lee's sparkling grin was the first thing he noticed. He was dressed in his shinobi uniform. Everyone else was dressed in more casual clothing. Sakura was seated next to the green eyesore. She could not hide her puzzlement. Shino was seated next to her. The veteran Junin were sitting at a table about 20 meters to the left. Guy was there and so was Iruka, Genma, Kurenai and Anko. He did not know the other two Junin. 3 women who looked like they were in their late 30s to early 40s were sitting at a smaller table that was situated next to a towering tree. One of them resembled Shikamaru. The one with a fuller figure resembled Choji and the one with brown hair resembled Ino. He vaguely remembered the woman that resembled Shikamaru from his earlier academy days. He finally spotted her. She smiled when their eyes met. She was sitting at the table that was about 20 meters behind Sakura. Tenten was standing next to her and Ino was seated on her left. Ino's shock was more obvious than Tenten's surprise. He broke eye contact with her and approached Shikamaru. "Happy birthday, thanks. I would be lying if I said I was expecting you of all people to show up. I wasn't expecting it too. I guess I just got pulled into. And I couldn't refuse for some reason. Troublesome. I also got forced into it." He looked at the blonde next to him. "Isn't this a long way from Suna?" "No, not really." He sized her up. She was one of the better ones. He could already tell. "Where's the Dobi?" "He's out of the village," replied Shikamaru. People slowly unfroze. The chatting resumed but the glances never stopped. He approached Sakura when he had finished speaking with Shikamaru. He felt numerous eyes on him as he walked. He wished he could avoid Sakura entirely but that was not possible. He saw the hope in her eyes as he approached her. The familiar guilt reared its hideous head. When would he stop being an asshole and tell her the truth? For how long would he continue feeding her with false hope? What could have possibly compelled the antisocial Uchiha to attend a birthday party? Her immediate guess was Naruto. No, he was out of the village. Sakura seemed just as surprised as the rest of them, so it was probably not Forehead's doing either. She sometimes found herself forgetting that Sasuke had returned to Konoha. But then again, it did not really feel as if he had returned. Not really. It was like the Sasuke that had returned was not the same one that had left Konoha for Orochimaru. She had been infatuated with him once upon a time. It had been a childish affair. One that had probably been driven by peer pressure rather than genuine feelings. Having a crush on Sasuke Uchiha had been the popular thing to do at the time. Hordes of prepubescent girls had found his cold and detached personality to be the epitome of attractiveness. Also, he had been the most excelling genin in their group. He had been physically attractive on top of that. It only followed that such a boy would accumulate a throng of admirers, overzealous admirers whose interest in him bordered on obsession. He looked more dangerous now. Maybe it was his rugged appearance and his reputation that made him appear so dangerous. It was the kind of danger that attracted women who were after thrills. Handsome, reserved, enigmatic, powerful, rebellious and rugged. That sort of profile made most women weak at the knees. Sakura's eyes trailed after him as he walked in their direction. Maybe out of all of them, Sakura was the one who was struggling the most to let go of her childhood. She just wished Sakura would move on from her fantasies and find someone who would care about her as much as she cared about him. How long would she wait for Sasuke? Ino. She smiled. She hoped that her smile did not betray her unease. Hi Sasuke-kun. It's been a while. Strange. Very strange indeed. Time sure does fly, doesn't it Sasuke-kun? HN. Sasuke was actually making small talk with her. Sasuke. Where's the pale one? The one with the dark hair that was my replacement on Team 7. Sigh. Why was he asking her specifically? It was almost as if she knew about her and Sai. But how could he possibly know that? He's working. We're shinobi after all, right? What would happen if all of us ran off to a party? He smirked. Some things never change. He focused his attention on Hinata but said nothing to her. His behavior was odd. Hinata was probably forcing herself not to squirm. She felt pity for her mellow friend. Happy, he said to Hinata. Not entirely, Hinata replied without a pause. You're late, and you've only been here for a few minutes. It's too early to tell if I'm pleased or not. Wait. Hold on. Hinata was the one who had convinced Sasuke to come. How in the world had she managed to do that? You're not easily satisfied, are you, princess? Am I supposed to be impressed with the bare minimum? What did you say about mediocrity the other time? Quote. Sasuke did not respond. The silence says it all. I'm just letting you win for once. Hinata smiled. You'll never say die, will you? Only mediocre people say die. Hinata rolled her eyes. I'm glad you came, Hinata said with a smile. She delicately brushed a few strands of hair behind her ear. They were speaking so casually. Their interactions did not feel superficial or odd at all. It was as if it was a conversation between two old friends. She had not been aware that Hinata had become chummy with Sasuke. She had not been aware that they even spoke. As far as she knew, Sasuke spent his time all cooped up in his cabin in the forest. When had he warmed up to Hinata? How had Hinata even managed to get Sasuke Uchiha to warm up to her? And more importantly, why had she not been told of this? I knew you would be bored to death if I was not here to keep you company, princess. No, I think I would have peace. Keep lying to yourself. Just accept that you can't get enough of me. Hinata's cheeks brightened. The blush says it all. Hinata twirled her hair. It's secondhand embarrassment, replied Hinata. Lies. See, I told you I would have peace if you weren't here. I disturb your peace. Yes, I never knew that the word disturb could have positive connotations. Hinata placed her arm on the table and leaned her chin against her palm. She leaned forward. You're insufferable. The smile on her face did not match her words. Sasuke looked at her knowingly. Insufferable. Hinata nodded. Sasuke leaned forward. He smirked deviously. Don't even think about it, Sasuke. Stop. She was unable to cope with the scene that was playing out in front of her. It was too much for her brain to process. She was perplexed beyond measure. The hair touching, the leaning, Sasuke's sly smirks, Hinata's smile, the tone of their voices, the overly familiar playfulness, Sasuke's gaze. She was not blind, neither was she naive. What is it, Ino-chan? Hinata asked in concern. You. She was pointing at Hinata accusingly. Her friend was puzzled. Me, you sneaky little. She had been so caught off guard that she could not even say anything coherent. Hinata was terribly confused. Maybe all those mind just you have friend her brain. Hinata looked at him pointedly. It's a joke, Ino-chan. She had realized that her mellow and innocent-looking friend was in all probability seeing Konoha's #1 bad boy. What in the fucking hell? Ino-chan, never mind. He was late to the party by at least 2 hours. The mission that was to blame for his unpunctuality hardly deserved to be even called a mission. It had been a glorified errand. He was in no rush despite being late. He was too preoccupied with his thoughts to be bothered. He hated how the Uchiha bastard was driving a wedge between him and Hinata. Why would she not listen to him? Why did she find it necessary to be chums with the traitorous bastard? He was cold and nearly devoid of emotion. Why would such a person even be appealing to her? He vividly remembered the time he had confronted Sasuke. He still recalled what had happened when he had gotten into Sasuke's face. There was something that he had seen in Sasuke's eyes. A barely restrained anger. A vicious anger. An animalistic anger. He had not shown it, but the look in Sasuke's eyes had terrified him. He was familiar with anger. That was no ordinary anger. The anger he had seen within the depths of Sasuke's eyes was one that promised destruction. Sasuke Uchiha was a bomb that was just waiting to detonate. There was no way in hell he would be at peace knowing that Hinata was chums with him. Life had been unfair to Hinata. Sometimes, he felt like there was no justice in this world. Good people often suffered while the evil prospered. Did being a good person not count for something? Hinata was better than most of them, but had Hinata gone through such hardships despite how exceedingly compassionate she was? She had lost her mother at an early age and had grown up in a crappy and hostile environment. She had been stripped of her title. She had been hated by her own cousin. Fortunately, things had changed for the better and she and Neji had developed a good relationship. And then Neji had died. Then she had walked away from her clan. This had resulted in her clan viewing her with greater disdain. Naruto had come along soon after just to break her heart. He did not resent Naruto for breaking things off with Hinata. It was unreasonable to expect someone to force themselves to feel a certain way about a person. That did not mean the effect of Naruto's rejection on Hinata had not bothered him. It pained him how Hinata did not have a relationship with Hanabi. It was not supposed to be that way. Siblings needed one another, especially ones like Hinata and Hanabi. They were the only remnants of their mother's existence. How would their mother feel if she could somehow discover that her daughters were not on friendly terms? Hinata had gone through enough pain in her life. Sasuke did not need to add to that pain. Sasuke's past warranted his wariness. He had betrayed Konoha. Worse, he had nearly killed Sakura. He would never forget that. What sort of sick deranged bastard would attempt to murder his own teammate? Only the likes of Orochimaru would do that. Only a sadistic monster would do that. Sasuke had been Orochimaru's apprentice. Was it really much of a surprise that he had become like the man? He kept on remembering the thing he had seen in Sasuke's eyes. The existence of whatever evil thing that existed in Sasuke's heart had convinced him that Sasuke had not reformed. He was still the same person who had nearly murdered Sakura. He only wished Hinata would understand. He was not trying to pull her away from Sasuke just for the sake of being a jerk. He was doing it to protect her. He was doing it because he loved her in the same way in which he loved his sister. He would do the exact same thing for Hana. The whole situation around their friendship was suspicious. Sasuke pushed everyone away, so why had he not pushed Hinata away? What was the bastard up to? Maybe he wanted to take advantage of her. She was beautiful after all. He squashed the idea. He could not bear to imagine it. His blood was already boiling because of that thought. If only Hinata would understand that he was doing it for her. He was not shunning Sasuke for the sake of being petty. He just wanted to shield her from him. Shino had told him time and again to give Sasuke the benefit of the doubt. He could not afford to give the Uchiha the benefit of the doubt and give him a chance to hurt Hinata. Doing so would be foolish. Maybe he would be able to give him the benefit of the doubt if Hinata had not been involved. Shino was intelligent, but he too refused to see logic. Maybe it was because he had not seen what he had seen in the Uchiha. Those eyes. Neji was gone. It was up to him and Shino to step into his shoes. Hinata deserved to protect it after all she had been through. They had to protect her. Even if she was oblivious to the threat before her. What sort of friend would he be if he just stood by as Hinata escorted herself to a death trap? The Nara residence appeared in the distance. Enough about Sasuke. That bastard did not deserve to dwell in his thoughts for so long. His mind wandered to Amy. She had sent him a letter a week ago. It had been the first time he had heard from her since they had last seen one another. This whole situation was difficult. Could they really manage to make this relationship work? She was the daughter of a feudal lord and he was a shinobi. They lived 4 countries away from one another on top of that. He sighed. He really liked this girl, but only time would tell if they would last. Occasions like this were not commonplace. It had been months since 9 out of the 12 members of the so-called Rookie 12 had gathered. It had been years since Sasuke had been part of such a gathering. Even if Naruto and Kiba had not been absent, they would still be 1 member short. Neji would always be missing. It was a saddening realization. Death was so sudden and yet ironically so long-lasting. She wondered how his teammates were coping. Tenten was strong, just like Tamari. But she could tell that Neji's death had damaged her. She did not even want to imagine the effect it had caused on Lee and Guy. She forced herself not to think about it. This was not the time for such thoughts. This was a moment of celebration. She and her cohorts were sitting together. They had shifted 2 tables nearer to one another to form a longer makeshift one. Lee had insisted. She and Hinata had helped out with the cooking. They had merely served as manual laborers. Mrs. Nara alone called the shots in her kitchen. Even Mrs. Akamaiki, who was a better cook, had been ordered around. Choji had prepared the meat. It was his specialty after all. I'm going to quit and open a shop that sells painting supplies, Shikamaru muttered from the head of the table. Come on Shikamaru, that's such a waste of potential. You could be doing so much more than just using your brain to retail art supplies, argued Choji. Okay then how about 2 stores? That's more ambitious. Clearly laziness cannot be outgrown, otherwise you would have stashed it wherever you stashed those pants you used to wear before you started wearing the standard issue uniform, said Tamari. She was sitting on Shikamaru's left. Don't make me reminisce about those days, Tamari. You're going to make me wish I could go back. Mrs. Nara and Mrs. Akamaiki's laughter reached her ears. The trio of mothers had shared many laughs that day. The Hokage had joined the Junin veterans. Shikamaru had complained about his presence. Seeing the Hokage apparently reminded him of his work, which was predictably a drag for him. Hey, Sasuke. Nearly all the eyes shifted to the Uchiha. His presence was very much felt. Sasuke looked away from Hinata and focused on Shikamaru. Remember those white shorts you used to wear? Tamari smirked. Choji chuckled. His old outfit was such a contrast to the type of clothing he wore lately. It almost seemed difficult to reconcile the idea of those shorts with his current style. What about them? Sasuke deadpanned. Shikamaru smirked. He shared a look with Tenten. Sasuke looked unimpressed. He turned to Hinata. She smiled mischievously. Ah, those shorts were such an amazing representation of boyhood and youth. You kept the flames of youth burning brightly with those shorts. Stop shouting in my ear, Lee. Geez, complained Tenten. Shikamaru observed Tenten contemplatively. Is it just me or are the guys always getting antagonized when we're gathered together? Muttered Shikamaru. What, are you accusing us of sexism now? Replied Karui. The golden-eyed Kunoichi from Kumogakura was sitting next to Choji. She was like a mixture of Naruto and Tamari. She was strong, stubborn, outspoken and rash. Do you think we're sexist, Choji? Why would I think that? Choji replied calmly. Karui had visited Konoha 3 times since the war had ended on behalf of Kumo. She and Choji had always been attached at the hip during her short visits. There was definitely something fishy going on between those two. The lingering glances they shared had not escaped her notice. She had almost not believed her eyes, but she had seen it earlier on. Choji had winked at Karui from a distance and the strong-willed Kunoichi had blushed right before her eyes. They were such a contrast. Choji had a calm temperament. Karui definitely did not. Choji was like Shikamaru. He approached life in a more laid-back fashion. Karui had an aggressive approach to life. They even talked in a contrasting manner. Choji spoke in a softer way while Karui was loud. They were an odd combination, but they complemented one another. They actually made a hell lot of sense. Sakura was oddly quiet. It was almost as if she was not there. Maybe, she now understood. Hinata and Sasuke. She had seen it too. What a drag. Do you see what's happening here, Shino? What do you mean, Shikamaru? She just bullied Choji into agreeing with her. They antagonize us and bully us on top of that. Sexism at its finest. They waited for Shino's response. The Aburame merely continued eating. The Aburame was smart. He had realized that maintaining his silence was the best option. I like you, Shino. I like you very much, said Tamari. I'm flattered, but I could never betray Shikamaru like that. They chuckled at Shino's response. Tamari rolled her eyes. Boys, you say one nice thing to them and they assume you're in love with them. Tell me about it, replied Tenten. That's the most truthful thing I've heard all day, said Karui. Sometimes you don't have to say anything to him. Just smile at him 2 or 3 times and he'll tell all his friends that you're in love with him, she added. Generalizing people according to gender. That's high-quality sexism right there. Lee laughed. Give it a rest, Shikamaru. Shikamaru sighed. Kiba would be on my side if he were here. The bantering continued. Sasuke and Hinata were not even paying attention to the conversation. It was as if they were in their own cozy little world. Sasuke said something to Hinata. Her cheeks reddened. Sasuke smirked in satisfaction before going back to his food. She would never have imagined it. Not even in her wildest dreams. Hinata and Sasuke, how in the world? She could probably spot the chemistry between them from the other end of the village. She remembered a conversation that had taken place a while ago in the flower shop. She had nearly forgotten about it. Hinata had confessed that she often met up with a so-called male friend and that was the reason behind her frequent disappearances. Her mind connected the dots. No way. Was Sasuke the alleged male friend? It had to be him. Clearly Hinata had been using the word friend very loosely. She felt betrayed that her friend would get involved with Sasuke and not even tell her. Did she not trust her? She was still thinking about Hinata and Sasuke when Kiba suddenly appeared. The Inuzuka was livid for some reason. His face was twisted in an ugly scowl. His eyes were burning holes into Sasuke's back. "Why are you here, bastard?" he growled. Sasuke slowly continued chewing. It was as if he had not noticed Kiba's presence. Hinata looked at Kiba. Her face was full of dread. Sasuke swallowed. He responded to Kiba without turning. "Are you talking to me, dog boy?" The tension in the air was palpable. He had been watching his old student from the corner of his eye ever since he had arrived. He could barely keep his excitement hidden. Something had changed since the last time he had seen Sasuke. It was subtle and yet apparent. Whatever the change was, it was the reason why he no longer seemed like a living corpse. His former student looked healthier than when he had last seen him in summer. His complexion displayed more vitality. He was no longer gaunt. His cheeks were fuller now. He had gained weight. The person next to him seemed to be holding his attention captive. Sasuke and Hinata, quite an interesting pair. He had never seen Sasuke so engrossed in a conversation with any of his peers like this. Perhaps she was the reason he was attending this occasion. It was plausible, with the level of familiarity he had observed. It was quite a plausible idea. Hinata turned her head in Sasuke's direction and said something to him. There was a playful expression on her face. Sasuke shook his head. Hinata could barely restrain her smile. It was an unexpected development. How had the mellow Hinata managed to break through Sasuke's nearly impenetrable defenses when all of them had failed? Sasuke's defenses appeared to be nearly impossible to bypass. He had personally failed to bypass them. Sakura too. Naruto had tried the most about the three of them but had also failed. It had seemed as if the Uchiha would never allow anyone into his life. Until now. Sasuke painfully reminded him of his younger self. He was familiar with pushing people away. It was a miserable way to exist. It was nothing more than a pathetic excuse of a life. The void that resulted from pushing people away was excruciating. No matter how much of an workaholic you become, no matter how much success you achieved, no matter how much booze you drank, no matter how much meaningless sex you had, you could never fill that void. Yes, all those things were capable of making you forget about the void but only for a little while. The only thing that could fill the void of having no meaningful relationships, he had realized, was to establish meaningful human connections. He had not realized how precious human connections were until Obito's death. He had realized the truth about life but had not accepted it. He had carried on pushing people away after his teammate's death. He had been living but had been cold inside. He had been a living corpse. Initially, he had pushed people away because he had believed it to be detrimental to being an effective shinobi. Later on in life, he had done it because he had subconsciously been afraid. He had been afraid to grow close to people and experience the pain of loss all over again. The reality of their lives was inseparable from death. He had been too much of a coward to allow himself to care for someone without heavy restraint. He had realized the fallacy of his way of life in his 30s. Sometimes age just made a man rethink his life. A question had one day developed in his mind. For how much longer would he go through life with such a void in his life? He had been in his 30s with no meaningful relationships. It had tormented him. He had eventually woken up one day and decided that he did not want to live like that anymore. He had wanted to let himself grow close to people. It had been 2 years since he had decided to allow himself to put down his defenses. His life had been forever changed. As a human being, forming bonds was inevitable. To deny yourself the chance of forming bonds with people was to go against your very nature of humanity. It was a self-administered hell of the most gruesome order. Life was about living. It was not always about choosing the option that promised the highest probability of success and completely avoiding the options that could lead to an unfavorable outcome. It was not something a wise shinobi would say, but he had finally accepted that he was not just a shinobi. He was a person too. True living was understanding that you could lose the people who you forged bonds with in an instant but still allow yourself to love regardless. Maybe this outlook made him less effective as a shinobi, but he was a point in his life where he did not care about being the best. An effective shinobi was one who severed all ties and cherished no one in his heart. But at what cost? Humanity. Loving was risky. Life was a fickle little thing. It was like the wind, it could be there but suddenly vanish in the next moment. Not growing attached to anyone was the safer option. Not loving anyone was the safer option. But at what cost? He did not regret allowing himself to love. He did not regret allowing himself to grow attached to the people around him. Maybe, just maybe, Sasuke had realized what he had unfortunately learned at such an advanced age. That thought gave him hope. The spark that shined in his eyes as he spoke to Hinata gave him hope. Maybe the Hyuga would help him realize how beautiful life was and how living was so much better than dying. Life was violent, often tragic and unjust, but it was also beautiful despite it all. There was so much happiness that a person could attain despite having a dark past. He personally knew that. He shifted his focus to Sakura. She had also realized the familiarity between Hinata and Sasuke, it seemed. He understood her pain. Sasuke had lowered his defenses for Hinata but not for her. He did not dwell on Sakura. He was too optimistic about Sasuke's fate to be too bothered. There was hope for the Avenger after all. What had he been thinking? How foolish of him. Of course, there was hope. He was a prime example of how one could escape their darkness. Kiba's arrival caught his eye. The Inuzuka surveyed the scene. His eyes settled on Sasuke. The rage that suddenly poured out of him was difficult to miss. He closed his eyes and rubbed his tired eyelids. It would be a miracle if he lasted a decade as Hokage. He had not even been Hokage for a full year and the stress of the position was making him consider going into retirement. But retirement was not an option right now. Naruto was still years away from being ready to take over. Eager as he was, the Uzumaki was still too green to lead Konoha. He would reassess Naruto's readiness perhaps 5 or 6 years from now. Kiba stormed his way to the rookies. He looked like he was on a mission to annihilate someone. Oh, the kids were no longer rookies. Their cute genin were no longer even genin. Most of them were now junin. No, he could not retire just yet. Shizune would never allow him. She would probably drag him back to the Hokage's office by the ear. That woman had too much influence over him. The fact that she knew this and often bragged about it was disconcerting. He sighed. It was his own damn fault. She oddly never used her influence on him to manipulate him for her own benefit. She never abused the power she had over him. She had only used her influence to force him into doing things when they had ultimately been for his own good. Shizune was the one. He was certain of it. Of all the choices he had made in life, Shizune was likely the best one. "What are you doing here, Sasuke?" growled Kiba. Everything came to a standstill. He just had to cause a scene, sighed Kurenai. "What are you doing here, Sasuke?" He was in no mood to put up with Kiba's whining. He had actually been enjoying himself before the Inuzuka had arrived. Kiba's tone was grating on his nerves and so was the question he was asking. Who did he think he was? Don't tell me your brain is that tiny. You can't figure out what I'm doing at a party. Sasuke. He looked at Hinata. She shook her head disapprovingly. He calmed down. He did not have to stoop to Kiba's level. He did not have to play his game. He could just ignore him. Stooping to Kiba's level would only lead to unwanted consequences. One of them had to be the sane one. Everyone had gone quiet. They were attentively observing the scene taking place between him and Kiba. Most of them were puzzled by what was going on. He could practically feel Kiba's rage. It was rolling off him like tidal waves. What game are you playing, bastard? Are you trying to take advantage of Hinata? His hand tightened into a fist. Such audacity. Why don't we just calm down? Said Choji. I'm not talking to you, Choji. Remove your nose from my business. The Akamaki clenched his jaw. Hey, the dark-skinned girl next to Choji shouted. Karui, said Choji. The girl's eyes were resistant. Choji shook his head. Ino and Sakura were glaring at Kiba. Shikamaru and the Kasecage's sister observed them with neutral expressions. Are you deaf, Uchiha? Answer my question. That's enough, Kiba. And don't even think about talking to me like you talk to Choji. I'll punch you so hard you'll wake up on the other side of the village. Kiba did not respond to Sakura. He knew Sakura. She had a volatile anger. She would not hesitate to resort to violence if she was adequately provoked. Kiba, cautioned Shino. Sasuke is one of us. Why wouldn't he be here? Asked Ino. There was a long tense moment of silence. Maybe the idiot would just let the matter go for the time being. Are you trying to see how fast you can get Hinata to open her legs for you? Does it have to be Hinata because you know she's the least likely to spread her legs for you? Ino gasped. His fingers found their way to the knife on the table. He spun around and threw it. It sliced the air as it zoomed in Kiba's direction. It missed his face by mere millimeters. He was on his feet by the time the knife landed on the ground. He glared at Kiba, Sharingan blazing in one eye, Rinnegan blazing in the other. Watch your mouth. Even the rustling of the leaves seemed to pause. Maybe he could tolerate being disrespected, but he would not stand by as Kiba spoke of Hinata in such a crude manner. Kiba scowled. The fear in his eyes receded. His anger trumped his fear. Idiot. Look around, you bastard. No one likes you. No one trusts you. They're afraid of you. Do you know why? Because you're a snake. A ruthless, insane and dangerous snake that cannot be trusted. He was barely holding on to his composure. What kind of person do you think is able to stomach all the things Orochimaru did to his human test subjects? What kind of person do you think is able to follow such a man? He was addressing the audience now. The kind of person who's just like Orochimaru. A sick, twisted and heartless bastard. He tried to keep his breathing calm. Wake up. Didn't he try to kill you, Sakura? Or have you forgotten? He saw Sakura wince from the corner of his eye. I don't like you. I don't trust you. I sure as hell don't want you anywhere near my friend. Kiba's anger suddenly vanished. He took a deep breath. The levelness of his gaze was unexpected. I will not just stand by and allow you to hurt Hinata. If you want to hurt me for that, said Kiba, then do as you please, snake. Hinata grabbed onto his sleeve. He looked at her. Her eyes were begging him not to retaliate. I know what you are, Sasuke. I've seen it in your eyes. His jaw tightened. I know you know what I'm talking about. He suddenly felt it was time for him to leave. His pride begged him to avenge himself, to assert his superiority and dominance. He would not give in. Pride never helped. He needed to leave. He was not going to stand around and listen to this. He would lose control if he stayed. Did Itachi have the same eyes? His back went cold. The hair on the back of his neck rose. Something started gnawing at his chest. Heat rushed in his veins. The thing inside him was awakening. He dared compare Itachi to him. After Itachi had given up everything for this village. After he had sold his soul to Konoha. After he had done the unthinkable for Konoha's sake. He dared compare trash like him to Itachi. You've spent half your life chasing after the monster who murdered your clan, and yet you're not very different from him. Did you ever stop to think that maybe it runs in the family? Stop it. He vaguely recognized Hinata's voice. His mind was spinning. He felt dizzy. Truth hurts, doesn't it? And stop looking at me like that. I didn't turn you into a monster. You did it to yourself, Sasuke. He was drowning. He was sinking into the dark deep. His lungs were rapidly getting filled. He could not breathe. He could not see anything. He could not hear anything. He only felt one thing. Fury. An old, almost forgotten sensation embedded itself into his heart. The urge to kill. His mind found clarity. Every other loud thought was silenced. There was serenity in his mind. He had missed the purposefulness of wanting to kill someone. The eternal flames of Amaterasu ignited in front of Kiba's feet. The Inuzuka leapt back to evade the boiling black flames and cursed. The flames devoured the grass they were sitting on but did not spread. He laughed. He laughed like he had never laughed before. He laughed at the truth in Kiba's words. He laughed at the irony of it all. He laughed at himself. He was a monster, wasn't he? Why was he fighting it? Why was he fighting himself? The voice in his head that had been telling him not to hurt Kiba went silent. Kiba needed to suffer. He needed to share his pain. He needed to be punished for exposing him. He needed to scream. Do it. I'm not afraid of those damned eyes of yours. Prove that I'm right, you son of a bitch. Kurenai's child started crying. Her screams pierced the air. Kiba stretched his arms open. It was as if he was waiting to embrace death. Do it. He cracked his neck. Don't rush me. Hinata grabbed his wrist. He turned to her. She flinched when their eyes made contact. Her hand jumped away as if it had touched a burning stove. He stepped towards Kiba. He deactivated the eternal flames of Amaterasu. I never knew a man could scream so much before I met Orochimaru. The snake was talented when it came to inflicting pain. I wonder if I can make you scream like that. Kiba growled. Kabuto once told me that there are 60 bones in the legs. And 64 in the arms. Do you prefer I break all 60 bones in your legs or the 64 bones in your arms? Kiba flinched. He smirked. Good. The human body is a complex thing. I wonder if Sakura can put together 60 broken bones. I guess we'll know how good she. He stopped walking. Shino stood on his left. Kakashi on his right. The Hokage's hand was tightly gripping his shoulder. Shikamaru was behind him. His hands were inside his pockets, but he was not fooled. He could see the tension in his body. The Nara was ready to jump into action. Lee was standing next to Shikamaru. He smirked. Did they fear him that much? Was he so powerful that 5 of them had leapt into action just to stop him? Let's not lose our heads, Kakashi told him. Hinata was 4 steps in front of him. He glanced at her fingertips. They were glowing with chakra. His eyes connected with hers. Veins were protruding all around her eyes. He faltered. He was certain that someone had stabbed him in the heart. He looked down at his chest. There was no protruding blade. He felt like someone had punched him in the stomach, but there was no one there. He realized that this pain was betrayal. He knew that her reaction was justified, but that did not mean he felt any less betrayed as she looked at him with the same eyes that everyone was watching him with. Hinata was not supposed to look at him like that. Hinata was different. He had never felt more alone. He had never felt more abandoned. He found himself loathing everyone that was looking at him as if he was an untamed beast. He found himself despising Hinata the most. He despised himself twice as much as he despised her. He looked around and saw the wariness, the fear, the distrust, the anger, the revulsion. His eyes were opened. He did not belong here. He never would. His legs swiftly carried him away. Sasuke, you crossed the line. Are you kidding me? He was going to break my legs. And yet I'm the one who crossed the line. He glanced at Hinata. There was a dark cloud of gloominess hanging above her head. He looked around. Everyone had been bothered by Kiba's behavior. They had been downright disturbed by Sasuke's reaction. Chaos had rained down from the moment Kiba had set foot on the premises. Choji and Karui were whispering to one another. So were Tenten and Ino. Shikamaru and Temari were silently observing. The veterans were doing the same. Sakura seemed to be lost in her own world. He did not miss the melancholy in her distant eyes. He made eye contact with Choji's mother. She shook her head in disappointment. Shikamaru's mother was fuming across him. Kurenai was still trying to calm down Mirai. Why would you antagonize him like that? Why are you on his side, Shino? He understood Kiba's anger. He fully believed that his teammate would have been writhing on the ground and screaming if Sasuke had not been stopped. He understood where Kiba was coming from. That did not mean he condoned his prior actions. The bastard nearly. Look around you. Do you see what your petty and immature behavior has caused? He was not easily angered. He kept a tight rein on his emotions. Anger clouded judgment. Anger impaired decision-making abilities and lowered inhibitions. He did not care about that at the moment. He allowed his anger to rage. He was beyond angry. He was furious. Kiba was not even the reason he was so furious. He was only a small part of the reason why he felt so furious. What would you rather have me do? Pretend to like him even though he's a snake? Calm down, Kiba. What if I don't want to, Hokage-sama? Kiba replied condescendingly. He moved. All the talking came to a sudden halt. The yard was as quiet as a graveyard. Kiba touched his bleeding lip. He realized that he had punched his teammate. He grabbed Kiba by the collar of his t-shirt. Shut your mouth, Kiba. Kiba stared at him in bewilderment. Stop thinking with your genitals and start thinking with your head. How many times has thinking with your genitals jeopardized things? His teammate clenched his jaw. Here's what's going to happen now. You are going to calm down. The dim ambers of resistance were still burning in Kiba's eyes. How stubborn could he get? And you shall under no circumstance address Hokage-sama with such insolence. Or I'll personally force some respect into you with my own 2 hands. Don't forget your place. The Inuzuka's resistance gave way to shock. Have I been understood? Kiba did not need to say it. He saw the resignation in his eyes. He released him and stepped back. I'm glad we're in agreement. Everyone's eyes were on him. They had been startled by his behavior. Evidently, there was a first time for everything. He took a deep breath. It did not calm his anger. He despised chaos, and yet here he was fueling the chaos. Hinata suddenly ran out of the residence. She was probably chasing after Sasuke. Kiba boiled in silent fury but said nothing. He returned to his seat next to Sakura. He removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. He felt the prickling urge that he was being watched. You looked pissed, said Sakura. That's quite an obvious observation, is it not? She smiled. Her smile did not reach her eyes. I could use a distraction. You look like you could use one too. What do you suggest? He replied. He did not like the look in her eyes. I bet you've never swam in the Akuma pool before. No, she smiled. Me neither. I'm too scared. I never overcame those legends, she replied. I bet exploring it would be the perfect thing to clear our minds. He rose an eyebrow. Now, The party can go on without us. What about swimming clothes? She looked at him as if his question made no sense. What about them? Why had it turned out like this? Everything had suddenly taken a turn for the worst so instantaneously. Why did Kiba and Sasuke have to fight like this? Why did Kiba have to despise Sasuke? How was she supposed to choose between her teammate, her brother in all but blood, and Sasuke? What would have happened if Sasuke had delivered on his threat? Who would she have stood with? She kept on knocking on his door. He did not answer. She was relentless in her knocking. He eventually came out. His expression was neutral, as if he had not threatened to break every bone in her non-biological brother's legs. Seeing him seem so unaffected angered her. How could he be so unbothered? Was he not remorseful? Did his behavior not bother him at all? Only a monster would feel no remorse. She noticed the tiredness in his eyes. She'd been too quick to judge. He had been affected by the ordeal. Why was she so eager to make him seem like the monster Kiba had accused him of being? His behavior had been frightening, but she knew him. So why was she doubting him all of a sudden? Why was re-evaluating him? Perhaps her mind was trying to rationalize the change she had seen him undergo. Perhaps it was attempting to make sense of how the very same person who had been effortlessly making her smile just moments before Kiba had arrived had suddenly seemed so evil. Perhaps her mind was trying to account for the change by attempting to tell her that he had been evil all along, that she had just not realized it. If she were to be honest with herself, she would admit that she had seen a glimpse of his dark side before. It had revealed itself when he had used Neji's death to hurt her. He had acted with the same brutality and cold-heartedness that day. So he was a wolf that was hiding in sheep's clothing after all. She felt like she was betraying him with her thoughts. Her heart knew that he was not an evil person who had fooled her into believing that he was good. Her heart knew that he was not a monster. She just. Maybe doubting people was part of being human. Maybe doubting even those you treasured in your heart was human nature. Perhaps it was unavoidable even though she was starting to. What are you doing here, Hyuga? She recoiled. Why was he speaking to her in such a rough tone? When was the last time he had called her by her clan name? Why had he reverted to addressing her in the manner he had addressed her in before they had connected? Aren't you supposed to be at the party, Hyuga? Did I do something wrong, Sasuke? His cold mask melted. A tired melancholic expression remained. He looked down as if suddenly ashamed. You did nothing wrong, princess. You just freed me from the illusion I lost myself in and I'm taking out it on you. I never stop hurting you, do I? He eventually made eye contact. It was as though it pained him to look at her. You're just like them. Like who? Her voice was just a tiny whisper that barely managed not to be swallowed by her own throat. Your friends. Like everyone. She flinched. Her eyes became wet. It was funny how painfully betrayed she felt because of the fact that he was doubting her, considering that she had been doing the same thing just moments ago. What is that supposed to mean, Sasuke? She knew that it was not the case. She knew she was special to him. He had said it himself. He did not even have to say it for her to know she was special to him. He showed it with his actions. So why was she entertaining the idea of him thinking nothing more of her than a random person? Maybe humans were addicted to pain. Maybe humans were so addicted to pain that they inflicted it upon themselves at times. They had a bond, a frighteningly powerful one. Why was she doubting it? Maybe she subconsciously believed that the bond between them was too powerful to last for long. Perhaps she was waiting for it to disintegrate into nothingness and leave her broken. She knew at this point that if her relationship with him suddenly ended, she would not walk away unscathed. They had become too close. Was she not the one who constantly told him to have faith? Why was her faith in their relationship suddenly so shaky? Was it because of that thing that had come out of him at the party? That side of him that had shown its hideousness to the world? You fear me just like the others. You don't trust me. A lump formed in her throat. That's not true. He smirked. She did not like this smirk. It was not one of those self-satisfied and infuriating smirks that she was strangely fond of. This one was so bitter. Don't lie to me, Hinata. I'm not blind. I saw you. She had been terrified of him. She still was. The Sasuke she had witnessed back there was not the Sasuke she had grown close to. The Sasuke she had seen back there was a sadistic monster. That was the Sasuke who had ran a Chidori through his 12-year-old teammate. That was the Sasuke who had nearly killed Sakura. That was the Sasuke who had wanted Konoha to burn in its entirety because of the sins of less than a handful of people. He was the Sasuke whose actions gave the one she cared for sleepless nights. He was the Sasuke who had not cared even in the slightest about the people who Orochimaru had abused in the name of gaining knowledge and power. "I'm afraid of what is inside you," she confessed. "You have this anger inside of you. This horrible anger that you abhor. I've seen a glimpse of it before, but I had never truly seen it until today. It's frightening. You become violent and sadistic when it takes over you." He smiled. "You know me so well." Those 4 insignificant words made her feel as though someone had stabbed her heart with a jagged blade. He had confirmed it. Sometimes not receiving any confirmation of the truth was better. It left the slight possibility that you were wrong. Something in his eyes told her he was close to breaking down. "It's going to be okay," she whispered. "Is it, Hinata? Is it ever going to be okay?" His eyes were glossy. "I have serious doubts about that." He stepped closer to her. His hand moved to her face. He started tracing her jawline with his index finger. He looked distracted. It was as if he was there but not really there. As if his body was present but his mind absent. "I'm tired, Hinata. I'm so exhausted. It just won't stop. Kiba is a bastard. You're now afraid of me. Ka-san. What would she think? I'm sure he's laughing now. That snake. What about my brother?" He tipped up her chin. "That boy died a long time ago. I killed him. I thought it was for the best. You understand, don't you? It was the only option I had at the time." He was rambling. She failed to understand what he was talking about. "I don't understand what you're saying, Sasuke. Forget about it." His gaze focused on her lips. She started thinking that maybe something was on her lips. "Is there something on my lips?" She doubted that he had heard her. His thumb slid across her lower lip. The sensation was light as cotton. The tenderness of the sensation gave her goosebumps. "Just once. I don't deserve it, but I wish I could find out what it feels like. Just once. Would you let me do it, princess?" His eyes locked into hers. The intensity of his gaze made her feel like there were butterflies that were playing in her stomach. Her heartbeat quickened. "Did that idiot ever kiss you before you broke up?" She failed to see the relevance of the question. "Did he?" His tone was forceful. She nodded. Naruto had kissed her. Thrice. He became despondent. Life's ironies. She eventually found her voice. "What ironies? It's better this way, princess." She was perplexed by his cryptic statements. The setting sun painted the rocks with an orange hue. He ran his fingers through his damp hair. The wind tickled his moist back. Sakura had been right. Coming here had helped calm him down. The fury he had felt earlier in the day had been so overwhelming. He was not accustomed to such fiery emotions. The pool they had spent more than an hour swimming in had been the subject of many childhood legends. One of the legends said that anyone who entered the pool would turn into stone. Another one said that entering the pool would lead to instantaneous insanity. Akuma Pool was a 20-minute run away from the village. It was a natural occurring pool of water that was surrounded by a rocky enclosure. The pool had a diameter of about 20 meters. It was about 1.5 meters deep at its deepest point. The area surrounding the pool was littered with multiple boulders. It was a rocky region with few plants and a single tree that was situated about 15 meters away from the pool. His jacket was hanging from the tree. His boots and glasses were alongside Sakura's sandals at the foot of the tree. The pool's mysterious, and nearly unnatural, existence and the unusual landscape surrounding it had probably been the reason why it had been regarded with so much superstition during their childhoods. His wet shirt and trousers were slowly drying on a boulder. He doubted they would get dry now. Sakura's skirt and top were on the boulder next to his. A finger poked his ribs. His eyes met green ones. Her long pink hair was wet just like his. Droplets of water were all over her pale skin. She was hugging her legs. She was only clad in spandex shorts and a bra. Even in that state she was more clothed than him. He was only wearing his boxers. It was funny how she did not act like she felt exposed. Maybe she thought that he was asexual just because he was so quiet. They had been there for nearly 2 hours. They had spent most of the time swimming with a few bits of conversation in between. The conversation had initially been about his kikaichu. She was quite curious about the symbiosis that resulted from a swarm of insects residing in his body. She was an intelligent girl with a thirst for knowledge. It had never occurred to him how similar they were. "So," she smiled, "it's so weird looking at your eyes like this." He ignored her comment. She had made at least 3 jabs about his eyes in the past hour. "I've told you about my depressing story and why I needed to clear my head." The conversation had become very personal. She had spent the last 10 minutes telling him about her predicament with Sasuke. She had been crushed when she had noticed the intimacy between Hinata and Sasuke. It was painful to watch the subject of your affections giving the affection you craved to another person. She had told him about how she had thought that maybe Sasuke was not interested in a romantic relationship and how it was dawning on her that maybe Sasuke was just not interested in such a relationship with her. Now I would like to know why the constantly in control Aburame was so furious. She watched him expectantly. She brushed her hair behind her ear. He watched the movement from the corner of her eye. Today was the first time he was giving her his undivided attention. He had never truly realized how beautiful Sakura Haruno was. Her beauty had come as a shock to him. He had always been fixated on Hinata. She was not the most voluptuous out of her peers. She had a more lithe build. Her toned thighs stood out to him. He wondered how many other guys had seen her in such a state. I was furious because I felt helpless. He felt compelled to tell her. She had opened up to him even though the two of them were merely former classmates and nothing beyond that. They had probably never had a proper conversation before. I also noticed the intimacy between Hinata and Sasuke. I realized that what they have is probably more than just a friendship. And I felt completely and utterly helpless. Why? Do you also share Kiba's sentiments about Sasuke? No. Then why would you? Her eyes went wide. Clever girl. Don't tell me. He nodded. She laughed. She laughed for nearly a minute. She playfully bumped her shoulder into his. You and I are more alike than I thought. He brushed his damp hair. Does she know? I haven't told her. She did not respond. So what are you going to do about it? He sighed. I don't know. Damn, Shino, I never would have imagined. She smiled. He watched the light ripples of the water with his unlikely companion. Sucks to be us. It sure does. She stared at the ground contemplatively. He pretended not to notice the few tears that escaped her eyes. You pervert, she said, you didn't stop me from taking off my clothes even though you're attracted to women. He smirked. She glared at him. There was a red tinge on her cheeks. I don't know where you got the idea that I'm not a sexual being, Sakura. She looked at him sheepishly. That was dumb of me. I don't know why I came to that conclusion. Maybe it's because I've never thought of you in any way other than the astoundingly pragmatic and introverted shinobi. Her blush deepened. I guess I've never thought of you as just another guy. Or even as an aggressive man of action who can punch a furious guy, grab him by the collar and intimidate him into shutting up. That was a bit uncharacteristic of me, wasn't it? She nodded. Look, I'm going to tell you this since we're spilling our deepest secrets anyway. Go ahead, but you have to promise you'll never ever bring it up again. You know that I pack a devastating punch, right? She was pointing at him threateningly. I promise. She turned her gaze to the water. What you did back there was hot. Hot, as in, yes. He laughed. Don't judge me. Our gender is attracted to strange things. Even a bit of arrogance or aggressiveness turns us on from time to time. Most kunoichi won't tell you this, but I'll tell you anyway. Most women are attracted to men who make them feel like they're capable of dominating them. He rose an eyebrow. So women want to be dominated by men? No, they don't want to be controlled by men. They just want to feel like their men are capable of doing so. There's nothing more attractive than being with a man who is capable of dominating you but still treats you like his equal. So you want to feel like he has the power to dominate you, but you don't want him to dominate you. Precisely. We expect them to treat us like equals, but we also want to feel their masculinity. A comfortable silence settled between them. His thoughts strayed to what had transpired. What do you find most physically attractive about Hinata? Her demeanor. Sakura's eyebrows rose. I thought you would mention something about her assets. Are you not into those kinds of things? I'm a sexual being, Sakura. I'm not immune to lust. She directed her gaze to the water. Since you're not immune to lust, does that mean you would give in if I tried to seduce you right now? What was she attempting to achieve with such a bold question? He berated himself for glancing at her thighs. It's a pure hypothetical, she added. Before I answer that, tell me what your motive would be, hypothetically. One cannot do something without a motive. She was silent for so long that he did not think she would respond. Motive, let me see. He ran his fingers through his hair again. Let's say sexual desire is the motive. What if I simply find you attractive? The air was suddenly tense. He did not like it one bit. Maybe the fact that they were both while discussing a sexual topic was to blame. Fair enough. Sexual desire it is, he said. Let's say I give in. What would you get out of it? So you're saying you giving in is a plausible outcome? Her tone irked him. It set him on edge. It was almost as if her tone was hopeful. He got the urge that he was now treading dangerous ground. I'm not immune to lust, Sakura. She looked down. A red-breasted parakeet landed on a boulder. Its dazzling green coat was pleasant to the eye. The bird flew off in a hurry. He felt more connected to nature here. He felt at peace. What if we remove the hypothetical element from the scenario? That sense of peace was shattered. His imagination went wild. He failed to stop the images. He glanced at her thighs and gulped. Is this some sort of foolish attempt to forget about Sasuke? Do you think it will numb the pain? The temperature turned icy. The tension grew thick. It would be a win-win situation, she whispered. That's a load of nonsense, Sakura. The anger he had felt back at the party was trickling in. Using sexual gratification as a coping mechanism only works in theory. I get it, Shino, she agreed resignedly. His anger only grew. You're being stupid for such an intelligent girl. I expected more from you. Have you suddenly become lazy to think? You're being an ass. His words had been uncalled for. He was too angry to apologize. Truth is truth. You've made your point, you can keep quiet now. Her tone was biting. She was on the verge of losing her temper. Have some damn perspective. Her hand flew in his direction in an attempt to slap him. It was an uncoordinated strike that lacked precision, speed or any power. He caught her hand. She followed up with her other hand. Her caught it too. The flimsiness of her blows was surprising. He would have been no match for her if she had actually put some effort into hitting him. He did not stand a chance against her in hand-to-hand combat. She kicked his shin. His leg burned in pain. He gritted his teeth. He pushed her onto her back. He was on top of her and pressing her wrists above her head with an iron grip. Her wrists would start bruising if he did not slacken his grip. She looked at him with a ferocious expression. Get off me. Her warm body was pressed beneath him. Soft skin was pressed against his own. His imagination ran off. He was attracted to Hinata. He was in love with her. But he was also male and Sakura was female. She was half and so was he. And she was beautiful. His imagination took him to places he wished to not explore. His primitive nature was calling out to him. He would have viciously silenced it if it were any other day. But today was a little different. His emotional control had slipped. It had slipped from the moment he had observed Sasuke with Hinata at the party. It had only gotten worse from there. Muddled emotions did not result in good decisions. That was the reason he gave in to his urges and kissed Sakura. She tensed. The tenderness of her lips threw him into a pit of insanity. A painful hunger started gnawing his insides. It was not food that he hungered for. She started being responsive. Her lips moved uncertainly at first but eventually synced with the motion of his own. He felt her rushing heartbeat through her wrists. They were forced to separate for air. He shifted his attention to her neck. He littered kisses across her neck and went down to her collarbone. He moved lower and kissed her in the area between her. Her breath hitched. Nothing else mattered in that moment. Not the guilt he felt because Kiba had ruined Shikamaru's party. Not his love for Hinata. Not his anxiety about losing her to Sasuke. Not the voice of reason that had been telling him not to give in to his urges. Only the girl beneath him mattered. Only sexual gratification mattered. She overpowered him in a display of unnatural strength and flipped him onto his back. She was on top of him in moments. The display of strength did not match the shy manner in which she was looking down at him. She bent down and connected her lips to his. The hunger he felt for her body grew mightier. His core muscles screamed as he pushed himself into a seating position. The movement pushed her down to his lap. He grabbed her buttocks. Her arms wrapped around his neck. His hands explored the skin of her thighs. He felt the goosebumps on her skin. She pulled away her lips. She leaned her forehead against his as she panted. Her breath tickled his lips. He ran his hands down her sides. His hands settled on her hips. Tired already? She shook her frantically. A faint blush was on her cheeks. Good. I'm not done with you anyway. He captured her lips. She attempted to dominate him. He would not allow it. Something wild inside him compelled him to subdue her. She relented and allowed him to take charge. His blood rushed excitedly. Lightning bounced around in his chest. Every sensation assaulted him. The softness of her buttocks as he caressed her. The smell of her hair. The vibrations of her rushing heart. The warmth of the arms that were around his neck. He was hopelessly hooked. She pulled away. He missed her lips. She ran her hands up and down his chest. It felt like her fingertips were simultaneously coated in fire and ice. The abruptness of the way her fingers left him bothered him. She lifted her arms and tied her loose hair. She frowned as she tied her pink hair. The blush never left her cheeks. Her emerald eyes also seemed to be sparkling. He was mesmerized. Never before had she looked so beautiful in his eyes. She finished tying her hair. Their eyes connected. She smiled before placing her hands on his chest and planting kisses on his jaw. Her kisses lowered down his jaw. His eyes widened as he felt the prickling sensation of her teeth sinking into his neck. She pulled back to see his reaction. She smiled a tiny mischievous smile when she saw his reaction. She started kissing his jaw again. Her fingers of fire and eyes explored his shoulders and returned to his pectorals. He grew impatient and grabbed her wrists. She pulled back from his neck and looked at him questioningly. How long are you going to keep me waiting? Kiss me on the lips. He could barely recognize his own voice. It sounded so aggressive. Her eyes widened. She looked at him as if she could not recognize him. He was starting to think that his aggression had angered her. Instead, her cheeks reddened even further and the desire in her eyes became more noticeable. She tenderly held the sides of his face, leaned down her head and brushed her nose against his own. Impatience was gnawing at his bones. Why was she taking so long? He finally received a reprieve when she joined her lips to his. They moved in a rhythmic slow dance. A sense of urgency took over him. He increased the tempo of the movement of their lips. His fingers strayed to her back. They clumsily fumbled with her bra. The bra refused to cooperate. He decided to rip it off. He tried to pull it apart. Sakura separated her lips from his. Be patient, Shino, she reprimanded playfully, I'm not going anywhere. She resumed kissing him. He finally managed to unclasp it. Her lips remained locked with his. She pulled away. Her whole face was flushed. Her breathing was erratic. She slowly removed her bra and tossed it to the side. She seemed insecure. His eyes lowered. His hitched as he drank in the sight of her. It became difficult to swallow the spit that was stuck in his throat. Her smaller hands tentatively guided his hands to her. He cupped them and squeezed with care. He knew how sensitive they were. She bit her lip. She leaned her head forward and captured his lips. He dominated her lips and forced her to submit to his rhythm. His hands returned to her thighs. Her arms wrapped around his neck. Her erect nipples pressed against his chest as she pulled him closer to her. His heart stopped beating for a moment. He flipped her. He was now on top again. His eyes remained fixed on hers as he pulled down her spandex shorts. He tossed them away like she had tossed away her bra. All that was left was a black pair of lace panties. He stood up and took a moment to fully savor her body. His eyes trailed from her neck, down her stomach and down to her thighs. Her stomach and thighs were nicely toned. Her were just the right size for her lithe physique. Her hips were proportional to her physique. Her skin was unblemished. She squirmed under his scrutiny. Isn't this a bit excessive? There's really no need for you to be so beautiful. Her face lit up. Her eyes regarded him shyly. He chuckled. She was cute. He lowered himself to the ground. He kissed her neck, down her collarbone, between her and finally kissed her stomach from her belly button down to the waistband of her panties. A voice had been whispering to him throughout the ordeal. It was telling him that he had taken things too far. But there was also this overwhelming force that compelled him not to stop. He could not stop. The warm body beneath made him not want to stop. Soft hands pulled his head towards forward so that his lips could intertwine with even softer lips. He pulled away and stared into her eyes. Do you realize what you're doing to me, Sakura? The blush that followed was stronger than all those before it. He kissed her. A basic sense of pride inside him was satisfied as she submitted to him once again. This was a girl who could definitely defeat him in battle. She probably had one of the most prolific careers out of their graduating class. And yet she was submitting to him. She was allowing him to be in control. Allowing him to be the alpha. You're mine now. She shivered. He had no idea why he felt the need to declare his dominance. I'm yours, she whispered. Something in his stomach roared. Consequences be damned. He would have intercourse with Sakura Haruno. He did not care that he had no right to be touching her. He did not care that she did not belong to him. He did not care about the effects it would have. He only desired to take her. It was ridiculously wrong, but the way she was looking at him made it difficult for him to care. His fingers slowly started pulling down her panties. Every particle of common sense and integrity inside him was begging him to stop, but his animalistic and lustful instincts were 1,000 times louder. He kissed her. Euphoria numbed his mind. She poured out her heart and soul to him as she kissed him. He felt every one of her emotions as if they were his own. He felt her desire. He felt her misery. He felt her pleasure. He felt her euphoria. He felt her desperation. He felt her vulnerability. He felt her self-consciousness. He felt her passion. He kept on tugging down her panties. She pulled away. Shino. He opened his eyes. She bit her lip nervously. I've never been touched before. Please be gentle. Reality started setting in. Panic washed over him like a wave. It dawned on him that he was about to take Sakura's virginity on a whim. The sobering thought opened his eyes. He realized the full extent of what was going on. He realized how strongly intertwined their beings were. A part of her soul and a part of his were currently merged together. That was why his mind was telling him that she was his even though she was not. They had even passed the point of just using one another's bodies to pleasure themselves. What they were doing was infinitely deeper than that. What they were doing was more than just meaningless gratification. More so for Sakura than him. He would have realized what was taking place earlier if he had not been drowning in the desire he felt for the girl beneath him. He did not stop kissing her. She was addictive. He wondered if sexual acts with any given girl would be so addictive. He never wanted to let go. She wrapped her arms around his back. She felt so fragile. Her unexpected vulnerability and softness threatened to destroy his sanity. He experienced all her emotions as if they were his own. There was no doubt about it. Her heart was terrifyingly invested. She was giving him tiny fragments of her soul. Fear flooded his heart. They were not his to take. Take me, Shino, she whispered in his ear. He shivered. He was off her within an instant. She sat up in alarm. What's wrong? Her eyes darted around. We shouldn't be doing this. Betrayal and pain crossed her features. Is it because I'm a virgin? He had never been so disgusted with himself. Sakura was not in the right state of mind. She was emotionally disturbed. She was hurting. He had not hesitated to pull down her panties even though her emotions were in such disarray. Is it because I'm a virgin? This was the result of him listening to his primitive sexual urges instead of listening to the voice of reason in his mind. He had once read that sexual arousal was capable of turning off parts of the prefrontal cortex and inhibiting a person's ability to reason. He had always took it as an exaggeration. The girl before him had reformed his opinion. She stood up. She feebly tried to cover her with her arms. There were bite marks on her neck. 3 on the left and 1 on the right. He had not realized that he had bitten her in the process. He avoided her eyes. He could not look at her no matter how much he tried. Put your clothes on. Is it because of Hinata? Do you feel like you're betraying her? Hinata. He had not thought about her until that point. Yes, he had betrayed her. He had betrayed many people. He had betrayed his parents. He had betrayed Kurenai. He had betrayed Naruto. And most of all, he had betrayed Sakura. Why won't you look at me? His gaze remained focused on the ground. She waited and waited and waited. He still would not look at her. Shino. He refused to look at her. She furiously spun around, picked up her bra and put it on. She picked up her spandex shorts but did not bother to wear them. She retrieved her skirt and top. She nearly broke the zip of her skirt as she wore it. He followed her to the tree where his jacket was hanging. She impatiently put on her shoes. He touched her arm. Sakura, She leaned away as if his hand was poisonous. Don't touch me. It was ironic how she did not want him to touch her arm considering how he had been touching much more of her just moments ago. She glared at him. Her tears were flowing like a waterfall. Thank you for being the most attentive guy I've ever talked to. Thank you making me feel much less shitty. Thank you for keeping me company. Quote. She was shouting at that point. Thank you for understanding me. Thank you for your compassion. Thank you for taking my first kiss. Thank you for making me feel desired. Thank you for being the first guy who's ever touched me like that. Thank you for making me feel special. Thank you for losing interest in me so quickly. Thank you for finding me disgusting. Thank you for hurting me. She left. He punched the tree with all his strength. The pain shot through his knuckles and ran up through his wrist and reached his forearm. He cursed like he had never cursed before. It's been a while, said the graying liquor store owner. It's been at least a month, I'm certain. He did not bother to respond. He merely placed money on the counter. The liquor store owner's uneasy smile faltered. The man averted his eyes and packed his purchases in a black plastic bag. He grabbed the plastic and turned to leave. Hey, what about your change? Keep it. The sky was now nearly completely dark. The darkness of the sky felt like a preamble of what he would soon be engaged in. The bottles of liquor had never felt heavier. His eyes constantly swept the area. Paranoia persistently suggested that Hinata was close by and that she would see him carrying liquor. He did not wish to deal with her disappointment on top of everything that was pushing down on his shoulders. Her assessment of him had been spot on. In the corroded and icy caverns of his heart resided a cold-blooded anger. To him, this anger was better described as a beast rather than an abstract emotion. It was a feral beast with chilling eyes that were teeming with spite. Its appearance was unsightly and repulsive. It only growled and howled expressions of violence and destruction. He kept it caged in his heart for the most part. It rarely saw the cold light of day, but sometimes it would escape its prison. Pandemonium would ensue. The air would become polluted with violence and spite. Very few things were capable of halting this beast in its path of terror. It relentlessly marched on its path of carnage. It could effortlessly overwhelm him. The beast would command him and dictate every single one of his actions in the same way in which a master controlled a slave. Nothing good ever came out of his mouth when that beast found its way out its cage. Rationality abandoned him. Sinister thoughts invaded his mind. Violence reigned. Chaos prevailed. Hinata had seen this beast more than once. Those beautiful lavender eyes had witnessed its violence. She had encountered the beast when she had found him pummeling his very own hand into a tree. She had heard it speak when he had intentionally used Neji's death to hurt her. It had made an appearance at the party and turned him into the monster Kiba had accused him of being. He kept on seeing her fearful eyes behind the dark curtains of his eyelids. There were two types of anger in his being. There was the nearly harmless one that frequently surfaced, and then there was the beast. The weaker one, the harmless one, would come and go. The beast was constantly present. It just rarely came out. He nurtured the beast, cherished it in a sick, twisted sense. He fed it each day to keep it strong. He nurtured it without even realizing it. The condition of his life was the reason for its existence. The resentment he felt had birthed it. He resented Konoha. He resented Itachi. He resented his dead clan. He resented Orochimaru. He resented his depression. He resented his purposelessness. He resented the way his life had played out. He even resented his lonely cabin. Above all, he resented himself. The overwhelming resentment in him had birthed the beast inside him. The deep resentment that he felt towards so many things had manifested into a petrifying beast. This beast only desired one thing: to inflict the same amount of suffering he had experienced on others. It spitefully desired to witness everyone feel his pain. Hinata was right to be afraid. An image flashed in his mind: a young boy playing on a swing with a carefree smile on his face. What had happened to that boy? What had happened to that happy, cheerful and innocent little boy? What had happened to his mother's son? He knew the answer. He understood it better than most things. That boy had perished along with his clan. He had killed him. That Sasuke would never allow such a violent anger to reside in his heart. That Sasuke would never had done all the things he had done. He definitely would never have treasured vengeance for so long. He had mourned his clan so many times, but he had never mourned the death of the boy he had once been. He quickened his pace. He was afraid that he would be seen in public with tears leaking from his eyes. The stars twinkled and winked playfully in the night sky. The blanket of glittering specks was beautiful to behold. She envied the stars. They constantly shined no matter the circumstances. Her back was pressed against a tree. How would she get home? Her muscles were so exhausted. The training session had been a grueling one. Her body was still on edge from the adrenaline that was coursing in her veins. She felt his presence before she saw him. He approached from behind and plopped down next to her. She did not know whether he had guessed where she was or whether he had used his insects to find her. He did not say a single word. He silently supported her, like an inanimate pillar. Shino was always calm and composed. She appreciated that about him. How do you do it? How do you always manage to keep your composure? How do you not allow your emotions to not dictate your actions, Shino-kun? He was staring at the stars. His hands were deep within the pockets of his jacket. He had changed clothes. His dark glasses sat next to him. Shino-kun, Shino-kun, yes. He looked at her. Why was he so distracted? What a messy day, right? He chuckled. Messy doesn't even begin to describe it. There had always been something about the way Shino spoke. It was more than just about the way he spoke. There was just something about his aura. It was as if he was completely certain about who he was and about his place in the world. It was as if he had everything figured out. He had always been like that. Even during the early stages of puberty. Puberty had been an awkward phase that had been ridden with uncertainties and identity crises. But Shino had not been a mass like the rest of them. He had not been frantically running around trying to understand who he was like the rest of them. He had been firmly grounded. Hinata. Yes. He looked at her contemplatively for a lengthy moment. He looked back at the stars. I'll tell you some other time. She refocused her gaze on the stars. I remember this one time when we were younger. Hanabi was 6 years old if I'm not mistaken. She came to my room at night and asked me where the stars go to during the day. It was one of the better memories of her childhood. Shino said something. She was too occupied with basking in the warm sunlight of nostalgia to pay attention to his words. I said, what did you tell her? I told her that the stars and the sun made a deal. They agreed to give one another a chance to shine. They agreed that the sun would shine in the day and would hide behind a mountain that blocked its light at night, and that the stars would come out and take its place until the morning. Hanabi believed the story for months. Shino smiled slightly. And you saw nothing wrong with misleading a child like that? I was a child too at the time. Plus I think this explanation is more magical than your scientific theories. He sighed. When will I ever stop being ridiculed for being pragmatic? Sometimes it's okay to choose the irrational option, she replied. Judging from today, I think I can safely say that I was right for always choosing the rational path. They continued chatting about unimportant things for nearly an hour. She eventually felt the desire to go home, shower and just lie in her bed. It had been a long and stressful day. You want to go home now? She looked at him sheepishly. It sometimes seemed as if he could read her mind. Very few people understood her like he did. That thought made her feel warm inside. He stood up. She followed suit. She was so exhausted that she had to lean against the tree for support. Her muscles felt so weak. Neji would be disgusted by how unfit she had become. Her cheeks warmed up in embarrassment as Shino observed her. He removed his hands from his pockets and turned around. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, Hinata, but aburame sometimes serve as a mode of transportation. He bent down. Understanding dawned on her. He was offering to give her a piggyback. No, I can't, Shino-kun. I'll make it home. I don't want to be a bother. This is the part where you're supposed to climb on, Hinata. Judging from the tone of his voice, nothing would sway him at this point. She swallowed her pride and climbed onto his back. She wrapped her arms around his neck as he secured his arms under her thighs. They took off at a leisurely pace. She rested her head on his shoulder. She grew so comfortable to the point where she started falling asleep. There was just something therapeutic about being around Shino. He was a steady rock that had constantly been present in her life ever since they had graduated. Now that she thought about it, he had always been the one who had picked her up when she was down. He did not have a volatile personality like Kiba and Sasuke. He was never moody. He was constantly as calm as lake waters. What he had done to Kiba earlier that day had been an anomaly. He offered the stability that both Sasuke and Kiba lacked. His possessed a levelness that they lacked. His character sometimes made her feel like she was not his equal. As if she was younger than him. She felt like he was much more sensible than her. A childish thought occurred in her mind. Maybe she needed to avoid Sasuke and Kiba and stick with Shino instead. He was unproblematic and low-key. All the drama in her life would be eliminated. She would not mind living a peaceful life after all that she had been through. She recalled one conversation that had happened between her and Ino. Ino had went on at length about how being low-key made a guy attractive. She had been infatuated with Naruto, who was far from low-key, so she had not really shared Ino's sentiments. She now understood Ino's perspective. Being low-key indeed made a guy more attractive. I better not find you looking so gloomy again. She smiled. I'll try my best, Aburame-sama. Kiba had often called him that during their genin days. The Inuzuka had often mocked Shino about how his manner of speaking sometimes led to him sounding like an authority figure. Not you too, she giggled.